Chapter 640. On the door frame, there were no words or carvings. It was as smooth as a mirror. Apart from a cold and mysterious aura, he didn't sense any danger. Behind the door frame, there was still an ancient stone bridge with no end in sight. In other words, this door frame was not the exit of the bridge of helplessness. But what was the meaning of this door frame? If the door frame was just to decorate the bridge of helplessness, they wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. Because in this kind of place, everything basically had its meaning and value. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Dongfang Wuhan and said with a faint smile, "Senior brother Wuhan, I'll have to trouble you to explore the door frame." Me? Dongfang Wuhan pointed to his nose and looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. Qin Feiyang nodded. "I may not be able to. Look, in terms of strength, I'm not as good as Wolf King. In terms of wisdom, I'm not as good as you. So I think it's better for you two to explore the way," Dongfang Wuhan said with a smile. Wolf King said with a smile, "Senior brother, you're too polite. I believe that with senior brother's ability, there's nothing you can't do." "I believe so too." Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile and said, "Senior brother, you're not afraid, are you? If so, then I won't force you." "Afraid? Humph. In this world, there's nothing I'm afraid of." Dongfang Wuhan snorted and immediately walked towards the door frame. Qin Feiyang and Wolf King looked at each other with a trace of ridicule in their eyes. Sometimes self-esteem could be the death of a person. Just like now, if Dongfang Wuhan was willing to put down his self-esteem and admit that he was afraid, then Qin Feiyang really couldn't let him explore the way. Soon, Dongfang Wuhan walked under the door frame and looked at the empty void in front of him, looking quite nervous. Suddenly, he regretted it. Qin Feiyang and Wolf King were echoing each other. In fact, they were trying to provoke him. He also knew that. But why couldn't he remain calm and take this risk? Seeing Dongfang Wuhan not moving for a long time, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and he said with concern, "Senior brother, if you really don't dare, then forget it. Don't force yourself too much." "Damn bastard." Dongfang Wuhan cursed inwardly, but there was a smile on his face as he said, "Junior brother Qin, you underestimate me too much. Am I the kind of person who gives up halfway? Besides, since you call me senior brother, then I should take up this responsibility and help you solve your problems," Dongfang Wuhan added. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. "You're going too far?" Since that was the case, he would continue to put on this show. He rubbed his nose and said, "Senior brother, you're so benevolent and righteous. How touching." "Yeah, tears are coming out." Wolf King nodded. He blinked his big eyes and actually squeezed out 2 drops of tears. "Damn, why don't you become an actor?" Qin Feiyang couldn't help but curse in his heart, feeling rather speechless. Hee hee. Wolf King secretly laughed sinisterly, waved his claws at Dongfang Wuhan, and roared sorrowfully, "Senior brother, have a safe journey." The faces of Ren Wushuang and the others at the side were dark. This bastard, can't he be more tactful when cursing others? Do you think others are idiots? How can you not understand such obvious words? Dongfang Wuhan glanced at Wolf King from the corner of his eyes, and there was an astonishing light flashing in the depths of his eyes. But he didn't say anything. He gritted his teeth and stepped through the door frame. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and the others also held their breaths, firmly staring at Dongfang Wuhan. But as time passed, Dongfang Wuhan actually stood there motionless. Because his back was facing everyone, they couldn't see his expression. "What's going on?" Shenlong was surprised. Wolf King said, "Morong Bear, go take a look." Morong Xiong said angrily, "Why?" "Because I'm stronger than you," Wolf King said proudly. Morong Xiong glared at Wolf King, his hands tightly clenched together. "What, you're still not convinced? It seems that you want to swim in the sea." Wolf King sneered, and the threat was no longer concealed. Morong Xiong's pupils shrank as he looked at the black sea below, his eyes full of fear. "Damned beast, just you wait. Sooner or later, I will make you kneel and beg for mercy." He secretly roared and braced himself to walk toward Dongfang Wuhan. There was no other way. Even if he was unwilling, Wolf King's obscene power was in front of him, so he could only compromise. Everyone's eyes fell on Morong Xiong again. As a result, Morong Xiong was the same as Dongfang Wuhan, standing there motionless. Lu Xingchen said in a deep voice, "There's a problem." Ren Wushuang shouted, "Dongfang Wuhan, Morong Xiong, quickly answer me." However, not only did the two not answer, they didn't even turn their heads, as if they were imprisoned there. Qin Feiyang glanced at their backs and said, "You guys stay here and don't move. I'll go take a look." "Be careful," Ren Wushuang warned. Among all the people present, there was no one more suitable than Qin Feiyang, because he was cautious enough and had many means. More importantly, he had the castle. If he encountered any danger, he could escape at the first moment. Qin Feiyang nodded and said to Wolf King, "Protect sister." "Don't worry." Wolf King secretly responded and jumped onto Ren Wushuang's shoulder. Phew. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and slowly walked towards Dongfang Wuhan and the other man. The hearts of Ren Wushuang and the rest also rose to their throats. Walking to the door frame, Qin Feiyang did not hesitate and directly landed beside Dongfang Wuhan. Then, he turned his head, wanting to see the expressions on their faces. But just as he turned his head, Dongfang Wuhan and Morong Xiong in front of him disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Qin Feiyang was surprised. He rubbed his eyes and opened them again. But this time he saw an even more incredible scene. The bridge of helplessness disappeared. The door frame was also gone. Ren Wushuang and the others were also gone. The black ocean also disappeared. It was replaced by a luxurious palace. On the ground, there were pieces of snow-white jade spotless. On the walls on all sides, there were all kinds of jadeite and colored glass inlaid, emitting a hazy glow. In the four corners of the palace, there were 4 thick stone pillars standing tall. On each stone pillar, there was a golden dragon engraved, bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws, vivid and lifelike. At the front of the palace, there was a bed made of gold. Every single pattern on the bed was meticulously carved. This place could be said to be extremely luxurious. And Qin Feiyang was lying on the bed at this moment, covered with a golden quilt. What's going on? Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and looked at the magnificent roof of the palace, his eyes full of surprise. Gradually, a different kind of throbbing arose in his heart. This place was somewhat familiar. Suddenly, he sat up abruptly. Immediately, a heart-wrenching pain came from all over his body, and he couldn't help but let out a miserable groan. Duh! Before Qin Feiyang could figure out why his body was in pain, accompanied by a burst of hurried footsteps, 2 young women dressed in palace attire ran in from outside the door. "Your Highness, you're finally awake." As soon as the 2 women saw Qin Feiyang sitting on the bed, they shouted in surprise. "Your Highness!" Hearing this name, Qin Feiyang felt like a bolt from the blue, and his body and mind trembled. He remembered. This was the bedchamber where he used to live. This bedchamber was built by his father, the current emperor of the Great Qin Empire, personally. He remembered that this was a birthday gift from his father on his 8th birthday. Although it was just a place to sleep, it had an extraordinary meaning. On the left side of the bedchamber was the martial arts treasury of the imperial palace. On the right side was the current emperor's bedchamber, which was less than half a mile away. He still remembered the reason why his father gave him this bedchamber. First, it was convenient for him to enter the martial arts treasury and study various martial arts techniques. Because when he was a child, his biggest hobby was to go to the martial arts treasury. Second, it was convenient for the emperor to teach him cultivation. At that time, because of his outstanding talent, the emperor often came to teach him personally. It could be said that when Qin Feiyang was a child, he was doted on by thousands of people. However, he was no longer the 14th prince of the past. Why was he lying here? Qin Feiyang's mind was in a complete mess. The 2 palace maids ran up and said with concern, "Your Highness, you just woke up and your body is still very weak. Lie down and have a good rest." At the same time, the 2 women held Qin Feiyang's shoulders and arms and gently put him on the bed. Qin Feiyang was completely confused and let the 2 palace maids do whatever they wanted. He was also very familiar with these 2 palace maids. One was called Qin Shi, and the other was called Qin Yu. They were about 15 or 16 years old and looked quite attractive. There was a rule in the imperial palace that all the palace maids, guards, or eunuchs who entered the imperial palace, no matter what their surname was before, had to change their surname to Qin. As for what name to change, it was decided by the master they served. Therefore, the names of these two palace maids were personally given by Qin Feiyang. After covering Qin Feiyang with the bedding, Qin Shi asked, "Your Highness, are you feeling uncomfortable?" Qin Feiyang had already calmed down, but he still didn't say a word and carefully pondered the ins and outs of this matter. He was still on the bridge of helplessness before, but as soon as he entered the door frame, he returned to the imperial palace. Could it be that the door had a transmission function? But that couldn't be right. If it really had a transmission function, why hadn't Dongfang Wuhan and Morong Xiong been transmitted away? What was going on? "Your Highness, please speak quickly. Don't scare us, okay?" Seeing Qin Feiyang not saying a word, Qin Shi and Qin Yu's faces were full of anxiety. Qin Feiyang looked at the two women and couldn't help but smile. Although these two palace maids didn't have the bloodline power of the Qin clan, they were the closest people to him besides his mother. Back then in private, he had even called the two of them elder sisters. Seeing the smile on Qin Feiyang's face, Qin Shi and Qin Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Yu said with a smile, "Your Highness, you must be hungry after being unconscious for so long. What do you want to eat? I'll immediately order the imperial kitchen to prepare it." "Unconscious?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback and asked, "How long have I been unconscious?" The moment he opened his mouth he froze. Why was his voice so immature? It was not his current voice at all. Chapter 641. What was going on? Could it be that he had transmigrated to the past? Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang hurriedly raised his arm. He didn't know if he didn't look, but when he saw it, he was shocked. This arm was too thin. The skin was also very tender. Then, he endured the pain and sat up, lifting the quilt. When he saw his legs, he was dumbfounded. These small arms and legs, was it really him? "Your Highness, what's wrong with you? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't scare us anymore, okay?" Qin Feiyang's series of inexplicable actions frightened Qin Yu and Qin Shi. Did I really transmigrate? Qin Feiyang's brows were tightly knitted together. He suddenly said, "Sister Yu, go get a mirror." "Mirror?" Qin Yu and Qin Shi looked at each other, their eyes full of confusion. "Hurry up," Qin Feiyang urged. Okay, I'll go right away." Qin Yu nodded repeatedly, turned and ran out of the palace. After a while, she ran back with a bronze mirror and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang took the bronze mirror and faced his face. When he saw the face on the bronze mirror, he couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. Inside the bronze mirror, it was actually a handsome young man. Thick black eyebrows, high nose bridge, full lips, smooth and delicate skin. His pitch black eyes were like two black gems, extremely spirited. Qin Feiyang's face was dull. Wasn't this his face when he was young? Why was it like this? He looked at Qin Yu and Qin Shi and said, "Sister Shi, Sister Yu, is this the imperial palace?" "Of course it's the imperial palace. Your Highness, why do you ask?" The two women were surprised. Qin Feiyang said, "Then tell me, why am I here?" Qin Yu said, "Your Highness, this is your bedroom. Where else would you be if not here?" Qin Shi looked at Qin Feiyang with concern and asked, "Your Highness, did you lose your memory?" "Lost my memory?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Qin Yu comforted him. "Your Highness, don't worry. We will inform the imperial physician to examine you." "Wait." Qin Feiyang hurriedly stopped the two women. Everything that was happening now was too strange. It was best not to make a fuss about it before figuring it out. "Your Highness, if you're sick, you have to treat it." "That's right. If anything happens to you, the Emperor and Empress won't let us off easily." The two women said anxiously. "Emperor? Empress?" Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. Waves rose in his heart again, but he quickly regained his calm. He looked at the two women and said helplessly, "I'm not sick. What's there to treat?" But the two girls still wanted to say something. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, All right. If there is an accident, I will take responsibility for it. I won't implicate you. Now tell me, how did I fall unconscious and how long was I unconscious?" "You don't even remember this. Your Highness must have lost your memory. No, I have to tell the Emperor and Empress. Qin Shi, take good care of His Highness. After Qin Yu finished speaking, she ran outside. Stop. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said angrily, if you continue like this, I will get angry. Qin Yu's delicate body trembled. She turned and walked to the bed. She looked a little flustered and said, this servant knows her mistake. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Qin Feiyong said, speak. Yes. 3 days ago, Your Highness and the Crown Prince were fighting in the martial arts field. In the end, the Crown Prince lost and injured Your Highness. You have been unconscious until now. Qin Yu said. Crown Prince. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Naturally, he knew who the first prince was. He was his elder brother from a different mother. However, his relationship with this brother wasn't very good. According to the precedent of the Great Qin Empire, usually the eldest son of the empire would take over the throne. If there was no accident, his eldest brother would be the next emperor. However, an accident happened to him. Because of his amazing talent, the current emperor already had the idea of making him the crown prince. And this matter was basically known to everyone in the imperial palace. The crown prince naturally knew, so he often played some tricks behind his back. But the problem was that 3 days ago, he was clearly in the 9 Nether Yellow Springs. How could he have fought with the crown prince in the imperial palace's martial arts field? No. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in Qin Feiyong's eyes. He remembered. That year, before he was expelled from the imperial capital, he did have a conflict with the crown prince, and did have a fight in the martial arts field. Later on, he was indeed knocked unconscious by the crown prince. However, the crown prince didn't lose because he lost, but because he was deliberately ruthless. However, he remembered that he woke up the next morning, and not long after he woke up his bad luck came. His cultivation was crippled, and he was expelled from the imperial palace. But now Qin Yu told him that he was unconscious for 3 days? What was going on? Could it be that in Iron Ox Town, Black Bear City, Yin City, the Sea of Despair, the Land of Ruins, the Forgotten Land, the state capital, the 9 Nether Yellow Springs, everything was just a dream in these 3 days? Could it be that being expelled from the imperial capital and having his cultivation crippled was also just a dream? But more than 10 years of time, more than 10 years of struggle, more than 10 years of hard work, the result was just a dream. Qin Feiyong couldn't accept it. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he thought of the ancient castle. Fatso and the others were in the ancient castle at this moment. As long as they were still there, it could prove that what happened and the people he met in the past 10 years were not a dream. His mind moved, but in the end, he didn't enter the ancient castle and was still sitting on the bed. Qin Feiyong was surprised and carefully sensed the ancient castle, but he was shocked to find that he couldn't sense the existence of the ancient castle. The ancient castle was gone? This is impossible. Qin Feiyong shook his head forcefully. Then, he circulated the battle character formula and the return character formula. However, the 2 great divine arts did not appear. I don't believe that what happened in the past 10 years was just a dream. Qin Feiyong roared in his heart as he looked inside his Qi Si. However, he was shocked to find that his Qi Si had not been opened yet, and what was flowing in his body was true Qi. Boom! His body shook, and a burst of aura broke out of his body. However, this aura was simply weak to the extreme. Qin Feiyong discovered that his current cultivation was actually only a 9-star martial master. It can't be. I'm clearly a 1-star war master. How could I be a 9-star martial master? Qin Feiyong muttered, his face full of disbelief. Qin Yu and Qin Shi looked at each other. How could a 10-year-old youth break through to the 1-star war master? Could it be that His Highness's mind was in a mess? It seemed that the situation was very serious. His Highness the First Prince has arrived. At this moment, a sharp and ear-piercing voice sounded from outside the hall. Qin Feiyong frowned. At the same time, Qin Yu and Qin Shi's expressions changed, and they hurriedly ran out, stood at the door, and respectfully greeted. This servant greets His Highness the First Prince. In front of the hall was a huge garden. On a winding path, a young man wearing a golden crown and a golden robe was striding towards them. This person was about 175 meters tall and was about 18 or 19 years old. He swaggered as he walked, and his expression was full of arrogance. This person was Qin Feiyang's elder brother, the current first prince of the empire. There was also a eunuch following behind the first prince with a flattering smile. Behind the two of them, there were 4 guards in golden armor, exuding a terrifying aura. The first prince walked to the door of the hall, looked at Qin Yu and Qin Shi and said, "Is my 14th brother awake?" The 14th prince has just woken up, and his body is still very weak. "Your Highness the first prince, if there's anything, can we talk about it later?" Qin Yu lowered her head and said respectfully, with a trace of worry in her eyes. "Awake?" The first prince was stunned, and his face suddenly sank. He said angrily, "What do you mean? This prince is his biological elder brother. How could I possibly harm him?" Qin Yu's body trembled, and she hurriedly knelt on the ground and said in horror, "This servant didn't mean to offend your highness, please forgive me. A lowly servant dares to block my way. You really don't know what's good for you, scram." The first prince shouted, his eyes full of contempt. Qin Yu didn't move, still kneeling there, and said anxiously, "Your Highness the first prince, the 14th prince is weak now. He really can't be disturbed. How dare you block my way, you're courting death." The first prince's face became extremely gloomy, and he shouted, "Drag them to feed the dogs." The 4 guards immediately stepped forward, grabbed Qin Yu and Qin Shi, and prepared to drag them away. "Let's see who dares to touch them." At this time, a cold voice sounded in the palace. Following closely, Qin Feiyang was draped in a golden cloak, and he slowly walked out. "Greetings to your Highness the 14th prince." The eunuch and the 4 guards brought by the first prince immediately knelt on the ground and saluted respectfully. At the same time, the first prince also looked at Qin Feiyang, as if he was observing something. Qin Feiyang ignored him, walked to the door, looked at Qin Yu and Qin Shi and said, "Get up." Yes. The 2 women looked at the first prince in fear, then stood up and respectfully stood behind Qin Feiyang. Looking at Qin Feiyang's back, they suddenly had an illusion that the 14th prince now seemed to be a little different from before. It seemed that there was a kind of calmness and sharpness. Qin Feiyang looked at the first prince and said lightly, "What's the matter?" The first prince smiled and said, "14th brother, the wind is strong outside. You just woke up. If you catch a cold, father will definitely blame me. Let's go inside and talk." Qin Feiyang said, "My place is too small to accommodate a big Buddha like you. If you have something to say it here." The first prince's face stiffened, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He smiled and said, "Actually, it's nothing. I'm just here to check on your injuries." Qin Feiyang's lips curled into a mocking smile as he said, "Would you be so kind-hearted? 14th brother, whether you believe it or not, 3 days ago, I really made a mistake. I sincerely apologize to you, 14th brother. I hope you won't hold a grudge." The first prince cupped his hands, his face full of sincerity. Qin Feiyang said, "Let bygones be bygones. Moreover, I was not as skilled as others. I can't blame you. Now that you say so, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. All right, take care of your injuries. I still have something to do, so I won't disturb you." The first prince smiled. "I won't see you out," Qin Feiyang said. The first prince smiled, flicked his sleeves, and left with the eunuch and the 4 guards. Qin Yu whispered, "Your Highness, you have to be careful. The first prince will not give up so easily." Qin Shi nodded and said, "That's right. He said that he was concerned about you this time, but he actually wanted to see if you were dead." "I know. Only if I'm dead will I not be a threat to his position." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. Then he looked at the 2 girls and said, "You 2 go ahead. I want to sit alone for a while." "Yes." The 2 girls replied respectfully and turned to leave. Chapter 642. In the garden, there were green grass, delicate flowers, a clear stream, and exquisite rockery. Qin Feiyang walked down a winding path slowly. Looking at the familiar surroundings, his eyes were filled with confusion. He, who had always been calm, was in a mess at that moment. He really did not know how to judge whether all of this was a dream or reality. Unknowingly, he walked onto a small bridge, Under the bridge there was a stream. The water was clear as a mirror and fish swam back and forth. Qin Feiyang stood by the bridge and looked at the reflection on the water. He felt helpless. In the past, he never asked for help easily, but now he really wanted someone to give him some pointers. After a long time, he retracted his gaze and looked at a pavilion beside the small bridge. His eyes were filled with reminiscence. When he was young, he often sat in the pavilion to read, practice calligraphy, and read all kinds of historical records. He remembered that once he found a very interesting book. At that time, he was in the pavilion and read it for 3 days and 3 nights, until he finished reading it. Because of this, the emperor and empress even scolded him severely. They said that he did not cherish his body, and that he was too insensible. How could he read like that? Although they said that they scolded him, they were actually concerned. Since then, his mother had come here every day to accompany him in his studies and cultivation. His mother's doting eyes and kind face were still vivid in his mind. This place brought him a lot of joy. However, this was also the place he hated the most, because that was where the upheaval had occurred. He clearly remembered that the day of the accident was a cloudy and rainy day. He was sitting in the pavilion reading a book, when someone suddenly came and forced him to take the calamity spirit pill without saying a word. At that time, he was in despair. He roared. He did not know what he had done wrong to deserve such a punishment. But no one gave him an explanation. Those familiar faces seemed so unfamiliar and cold in his eyes. At that time, he had just turned 10 years old. He was just an innocent child. Why did they treat him so cruelly? For more than 10 years, he had been thinking about revenge every moment. But now, he was told that all of this was just a dream. How could he accept it? Was the dream so realistic? Every detail, every character, was clearly imprinted in his mind. Seriously, he would rather believe that everything he saw was a dream. However, Qin Yu and Qin Shi said that he had been in a coma for 3 days. The first prince had also said that he had been unconscious for 3 days, and had even come over to show concern for him. These were also very realistic. Suddenly, he shuddered and thought of a few things that could prove that this was not a dream. One of them was the Cosmos sack. The ancient castle could disappear, but the Qianquan bag had always been on his waist, so it was impossible for it to disappear. The things inside could not be changed. He hurriedly took out his Qianquan bag and immersed his consciousness into it. However, he was dumbfounded on the spot. Chang shui, ribs, and various medicinal herbs and pills had all disappeared. Instead, they were replaced by large amounts of gold coins, martial skills, and historical records. These were the things he had before he left the imperial capital. I don't believe it, he muttered to himself as he pulled open his shirt and looked down. Immediately, his arms drooped powerlessly as he stared blankly at the stream. His entire being was in a daze. The concentric knot and potential imprint on his chest were also gone. Could it be that what happened in the past 10 years was really a dream? Qin Feiyang murmured, because only when he woke up from the dream would everything disappear. Your Highness. At this time, Qin Yu trotted over. When she ran to Qin Feiyang's side, she did not see Qin Feiyang respond to her. She could not help but ask with concern, Your Highness, what's wrong with you? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He turned his head to look at Qin Yu. Looking at Qin Yu's concerned eyes, he slightly adjusted his mood and smiled. Sister Yu, are you looking for me for something? Shoo. Qin Yu's face changed as she hurriedly gestured for him to keep quiet. She whispered, The Empress is here. Don't call me that anymore. If she hears it, even if I don't die, I will lose a layer of skin. Mother. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. For more than 10 years, he had been missing his mother all the time. But at this moment, when he really wanted to see his mother, he was a little hesitant. In the 3 days when you were unconscious, the Empress came more than 10 times. Every time she came, she washed her face with tears. Your Highness, when you see her later, you must not be naughty again. Qin Yu whispered. Naughty? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He was an adult now. How could he still be naughty? But then he was stunned again. A wry smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He had completely forgotten that he was only a 10-year-old boy. 10 years old was originally a naughty age. What's more, He was indeed quite naughty in the past. It was only because of that incident that he became mature and steady. Qin Yu looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, "Your Highness, did you hear what I said?" Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "Where is mother now?" Qin Yu said, "Your Highness, in your bedroom." Qin Feiyang looked up at the palace located in front of the garden. After a long silence, he retracted his gaze and then looked at Qin Yu with a faint smile. "Sister Yu, you go ahead. I will go there myself." "Okay." Qin Yu responded respectfully and turned to leave. Qin Feiyang did not immediately go there. Although he was eager to see his mother, he was not prepared at all. He did not know what to say when they met. Standing by the bridge, he was silent for a long time. Phew! In the end, he let out a long breath and turned to walk toward the palace. He must see his mother, because there were many mysteries that he could find the answers to from his mother. A moment later, he came to the gate of the palace. In front of the palace, there were two more guards. Both of them were middle-aged, tall and burly, wearing purple gold armor. Their eyes were incomparably sharp, and the aura they exuded was as unfathomable as the ocean. Qin Feiyang was very familiar with the two of them. They were the guards by his mother's side. However, he was not very clear about their cultivation, but according to his mother, the two of them were existences that surpassed the War Master. "Greetings, Your Highness." Seeing Qin Feiyang walk over, the two of them immediately bowed. "Uncles, there's no need to be so polite." Qin Feiyang laughed. As the guards by his mother's side, they were naturally very good to him, the prince. Sometimes, they would even help him suppress the first prince and the others. Therefore, Qin Feiyang had always respected these two people. "Your Highness, you're awake. We can finally breathe a sigh of relief. The Empress has been waiting for you in the side hall for a long time. Quickly go in." The two of them laughed, and there was a trace of doting between their brows. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned to walk towards the door. Looking at Qin Feiyang's back, the man on the left had a trace of suspicion in his eyes as he sent a sound transmission. "Old friend, did you notice that His Highness seems a little different now?" "Different?" The man on the right carefully sized up Qin Feiyang and thought to himself, "Now that you mention it, he really is a little different. Especially his temperament now. It's like he's a completely different person from before. He gives me the feeling that he's a scheming old fox." The man on the left narrowed his eyes and said angrily, "How dare you call His Highness an old fox?" The man on the right was startled and hurriedly said, "Sorry, it was a slip of the tongue. What I meant was that His Highness is more mature than before." The man on the left rolled his eyes and said, "You must pay attention to what you say in the future. Even though we have a good relationship with His Highness, we can't act without propriety." Yes, I'll pay attention." The man on the right nodded repeatedly. Back to Qin Feiyang. When he reached the threshold of the door, he sensed a familiar aura. He would never forget this aura for the rest of his life. It was his mother, the Empress. The Emperor intended to make him the crown prince. His talent was only one of the reasons, and the other was because of his mother. This was because the Empress had supreme authority in the Great Qin Empire. It was even to the extent that because of certain reasons, even the Emperor had to be courteous to his mother. Even the Emperor was like this, let alone the various dukes in the imperial capital. In front of his mother, these dukes who held great authority didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and slightly eased the nervousness in his heart. He walked into the main hall and went straight to the door of the side hall. Immediately, a graceful and luxurious beautiful woman entered his line of sight. The beautiful woman wore a crimson gold phoenix crown on her head, and a golden dress with a lifelike phoenix pattern embroidered on it. A light golden cloud belt was tied around her waist, and she emitted a sacred aura that couldn't be profaned. Her appearance and skin were like that of a young girl, sparkling and translucent without the slightest flaw. No matter where she was a dazzling star and extremely eye-catching. However, at this moment, the beautiful woman was walking back and forth in the side hall, seeming to be rather anxious. Qin Feiyang's eyes couldn't help but moisten. This was the mother that he had been longing for so much. He finally saw her. His mother was still the same as before. There was no change at all. "Mother." Qin Feiyang opened his mouth and shouted, somewhat choked with sobs. Tian'er, hearing Qin Feiyang's voice, the beautiful woman's body trembled, and hurriedly turned to look at the door. Seeing Qin Feiyang standing outside the door, the beautiful woman hurriedly stepped forward and said angrily, "Running around as soon as you wake up, can't you make me less worried?" At the same time, Qin Feiyang's eyes also trembled. Tiana. He hadn't heard this name for a long time, and he had almost forgotten it, because his original name had the word Tian in it. So his mother had always called him Tian'er. "I'm sorry to make mother worry." Qin Feiyang lowered his head and said. Tears uncontrollably flowed out of his eyes and dripped to the ground, splashing water. "What's wrong? I only said a few words, and you feel wronged?" The beautiful woman glared at Qin Feiyang angrily, then squatted on the ground and hugged Qin Feiyang in her arms, saying, "Tian'er, mother is not blaming you, mother is afraid, you know? Seeing you in a coma these days, mother is afraid of losing you." Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's tears flowed even more fiercely. Okay, you're already so old and still crying. If others see you, they will definitely laugh at you behind your back. The beautiful woman rubbed Qin Feiyang's head and smiled dotingly. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, "I'm not afraid of being laughed at. Mother, let me hold you a little longer, okay?" Okay. The beautiful woman nodded, looking a little helpless. Entering his mother's arms again and smelling her familiar scent again, Qin Feiyang was obsessed and his heart melted. He didn't want to get up again. If this was a dream, he didn't want to wake up. He would rather stay in the dream forever than leave his mother. However, the beautiful woman didn't think so much. She only thought that Qin Feiyang was still a little scared after surviving a disaster. So she softly comforted Qin Feiyang. After a long time, Qin Feiyang got up, wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes, and looked at the beautiful woman with a silly smile. "Mother, it's so good to see you." "Silly child. Mother is here every day. If you want to see mother in the future, you can come and find me at any time," the beautiful woman said with a smile, while holding Qin Feiyang's hand and walking to the seat next to them. When the beautiful woman sat down, she smiled and said, "Tian'er, come and sit on mother's lap." Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded happily. A 10-year-old child sitting on his mother's lap was a very normal thing. The beautiful woman hugged Qin Feiyang and said, "Tian'er, although your talent is good, you're still young. Try not to provoke your big brother in the future." Qin Feiyang nodded. "I know. With my strength, I'm still not his opponent." "It's good that you know. Although mother is the empress, I can't punish your big brother because of this. However, I've already mentioned this to your father. He must be strictly disciplined," the beautiful woman said. "Thank you, mother. Let's not talk about big brother." "Mother, I have a question to ask you," Qin Feiyang said. "What question?" the beautiful woman smiled and asked. Qin Feiyang said, "Do you have a dagger called Chang Shui?" The beautiful woman was stunned, her face full of suspicion. "You don't?" Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel disappointed. After pondering for a while, he said, "Then I'll ask you about another person, Qin Yuan." Although he had been with Uncle Yuan for so many years, Qin Feiyang still didn't know Uncle Yuan's true identity. He only remembered that when he was expelled from the imperial capital, he was in a coma. When he woke up, Uncle Yuan was already by his side, saying that he was ordered by his mother to take care of him. He also asked, but Uncle Yuan always used some unimportant things to brush him off. "Qin Yuan? Is there such a person in our Qin clan? Where did you hear about it?" The beautiful woman was puzzled. In a dream, Qin Feiyang blurted out without hesitation. Subconsciously, he had already regarded those more than 10 years of experience as a dream. The beautiful woman was stunned. In the end, she burst out laughing and scolded, "Silly child. How can you take the things in a dream seriously?" "Yes, things in a dream can't be taken seriously." Qin Feiyang nodded. There was no Uncle Yuan, no Chang Shui, and no castle. There was nothing here. If it wasn't a dream, what was it? Qin Feiyang completely believed that everything in front of him was real. He smiled and said, "Mother, where is father now?" The beautiful woman said, "He's dealing with business. Don't disturb him. When he's done, he'll naturally come to see you." Qin Feiyang said, "I know." The beautiful woman stood up, rubbed Qin Feiyang's head, and said with a smile, "Do you want to eat anything? Tell mother. Mother will personally cook for you today." "Anything is fine." Qin Feiyang showed a silly smile. The beautiful woman was stunned and nodded. "Okay, then you rest here first. When the food is ready, mother will send someone to call you." "No, I want to go with mother. I also want to personally cook a few dishes to show filial piety to mother," Qin Feiyang said very seriously. The beautiful woman looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. This child had never done this kind of thing before. Why was he so strange today? "Mother, why are you in a daze? Let's go." Qin Feiyang dragged the beautiful woman and ran outside. "Your body hasn't recovered yet. Why are you walking so fast? Walk slowly. Mother, your son's body is very strong. It's okay." In this way, Qin Feiyang and the beautiful woman walked outside, talking and laughing. But not long after they left the hall, a soft sigh sounded in the hall. Following that, a vague black shadow appeared out of thin air. He's trapped in the illusion, but doesn't realize it. This child has been completely addicted. But it's good. Let him enjoy the long-lost motherly love in this illusion. It can also satisfy his wish. Chapter 643. The appearance of the black shadow was like a flash in the pan, and it soon disappeared without a trace. The imperial kitchen. At this moment, all the imperial chefs and palace maids were standing outside the door, looking at the mother and son, who were busy inside in surprise. What was going on today? The empress, who had always been high above the masses, and the emperor's favorite prince, actually came to cook in person? Besides, the two masters had always stretched out their hands for clothes and opened their mouths for food. How could they make delicious food? But the result shocked them. Not long after, a mouth-watering aroma of rice wafted out from the imperial kitchen. This is impossible. All the imperial chefs were dumbfounded. When did the empress and the prince learn how to cook? Why didn't they hear about it? Actually, the person who cooked was Qin Feiyang. In the past, he did not know how to cook in the imperial capital. But since he was stranded in Iron Ox Town, he had to learn these basic life skills in order to survive. However, the celestial empress was completely clueless about the kitchen. At first, she thought that cooking was very simple, so she said that she would cook for Qin Feiyang. But as soon as she entered the kitchen, she immediately realized that she was too naive. Because, looking at the pots and pans in front of her, she did not know where to start, and where to start. Seeing his mother's embarrassed expression, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. In the end, the empress had no choice but to compromise and help Qin Feiyang. Although the kitchen was filled with oil and smoke, Qin Feiyang enjoyed this feeling very much. When there was sweat on his mother's forehead, he would help her wipe it off immediately. Gradually, the empress also realized that this child seemed to be a little different from before. He was more considerate and mature than before. She even felt that in front of Qin Feiyang, she was more like a child who was taken care of. But she also liked the current Qin Feiyang very much. He was very serious, and made people feel very grounded. The empress asked curiously, "Tian'er, did you also learn this in your dream?" At this moment, Qin Feiyang was holding a big wok, and as he stir-fried he laughed. "Yes, in my dream. I learned a lot of things, and when I woke up from my dream, I had already broken through to 1-star war master." The empress smiled. "It seems that these 3 days you had a very long dream." "Yes. In the dream more than 10 years have passed. I remember every detail clearly. So when I woke up, I couldn't tell which one was a dream, which was the real world." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Celestial Empress came to a realization and said, "No wonder you would ask so many strange questions in the side hall." Qin Feiyang smiled and stretched out his hand. "Mother, give your child a plate." Celestial Empress grabbed a prepared jade plate and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang took the jade plate and quickly put the vegetables in the pot into the jade plate. Then, he turned off the fire and walked to the dining table and put it on the table. There were 5 dishes, 1 soup, and 2 bowls of rice on the table. Although it wasn't perfect in terms of appearance, fragrance, and taste, it could still arouse one's appetite. Qin Feiyang swallowed his saliva and turned to look at his mother. He smiled and said, "It's all healed, my gentle and kind mother. Please enjoy." All right. Empress nodded and walked to the table with a smile. She picked up the jade chopsticks and put a piece of vegetable into her mouth. She nodded and praised, "Not bad, Tian." Being praised like this, Qin Feiyong scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "If mother likes it, this child will make it for you every day." Celestial Empress smiled and said, "Looks like mother will be in for a treat in the future. Is it really that delicious? Let me have a taste." But at this moment, a voice full of energy rang out. Following closely, a golden figure appeared in front of the table out of thin air. Immediately, Qin Feiyong's gaze trembled. The person who came was a middle-aged man with a golden dragon crown on his head and a golden dragon robe on his body. His eyebrows were sharp like swords and his entire body emitted a shocking aura of an emperor. Without a doubt, this person was the current supreme emperor of the Great Qin Empire. "Greetings, Your Majesty." As soon as the emperor arrived, the palace maids, guards, and imperial chefs outside knelt down and kowtowed. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Celestial Empress also stood up and bowed. The emperor smiled and said, "We're all family here. There's no need to be so polite." With that, the emperor looked at the crowd outside and said, "All of you stand up too." Yes. Everyone stood up and stood respectfully in front of the door, not daring to even breathe loudly. Celestial Empress was puzzled. "Aren't you dealing with matters? Why are you suddenly here? My precious son is awake. Of course I have to come and see him." The emperor looked at Qin Feiyong dotingly, but found that Qin Feiyong was looking at him with a trace of fear in his eyes. "Tian, or what's wrong? Could it be that after being unconscious for a few days, you can't even recognize your father?" The emperor scolded with a smile. Celestial Empress also looked at Qin Feiyong strangely. Qin Feiyong quivered and came back to his senses. He bowed and said, "Greetings, father." That disaster was just a dream. The father in front of him was still the father who doted on him. Everything was in the past. There was no need to think so much. The emperor was stunned and patted Qin Feiyong's head in annoyance. He scolded, "Brat, why are you so reserved all of a sudden? This is not like you." Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "People will grow up." The emperor was stunned and asked with a strange expression, "So you've grown up? Just a little more mature than before." Qin Feiyong chuckled. "Come on. Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? Stop putting on an act in front of your father." The emperor rolled his eyes and looked at the dishes on the table. He said in surprise, "You made all these?" "Yes. Father, have a taste too." Qin Feiyong was like a child who was asking for praise. He quickly took a pair of chopsticks and handed it to the emperor. The emperor smiled and said, "Of course I have to try the food made by my precious son. But there is a condition. If it doesn't taste good, I will punish you." Qin Feiyong asked, "If it's delicious, then shouldn't I be rewarded?" The emperor's face twitched. He turned to look at Celestial Empress and said, See. Just now he said he was mature, and now he is taking the opportunity to blackmail his father. Alas, how did I give birth to such a white-eyed wolf?" The emperor shook his head with a sad face. "White-eyed wolf?" Qin Feiyong's body trembled. The emperor's unintentional words awakened his memory. Wolf King, going through life and death with the white-eyed wolf, fighting side by side for more than 10 years. He had long been an inseparable family member. But he didn't expect that it was just a dream. But when the emperor saw this, he thought that Qin Feiyong was angry. He smiled apologetically and said, "Tian, father was just joking. Be good, don't be angry. Father will apologize to you, okay?" As the emperor of the empire, he could actually put down his attitude and apologize to his child. It could be seen how much the emperor doted on Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong was speechless. "Am I such a petty person? I just thought of a wolf in my dream." "Dream?" The emperor was stunned. Celestial Empress smiled and said, "These 3 days, Tian'er had a very long dream. He even said that in his dream, he had already broken through to War Master." Ugh! The emperor was stunned, then shook his head and said, "What a silly boy. But with your talent, not to mention War Master, even surpassing father is not impossible, as long as you are willing to work hard." I will work hard. Qin Feiyang nodded solemnly. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have thought so much. But it was different now. No matter what identity or background one had, without strength, everything was in vain. The emperor looked at Qin Feiyang seriously and nodded. Yes, you are indeed much more mature than before. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's have a good meal as a family. The family of 3 sat around the dining table, chatting and laughing. It was a happy and harmonious atmosphere. Qin Feiyang looked at his mother, and then at his father, a happy smile on his face. This was the life he wanted. Happy times always pass quickly. After the meal, the emperor went to deal with business again. Celestial Empress accompanied Qin Feiyang back to his bedroom, gave him a few words of advice, and then turned to leave. Qin Feiyang seemed to have suddenly made a decision and shouted, "Mother, wait." Celestial Empress stopped, turned around and asked with a smile, "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang said, "Mother, I want to go to the spiritual state to take a look." Spiritual state? Celestial Empress frowned. Qin Feiyang said in disappointment and frustration, "Although it was only a dream, I still wanted to take a look because there were too many people in the dream that I was worried about." Celestial Empress pondered for a moment and nodded with a smile. "All right, but I will only be reassured if your 2 uncles go with you." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. Celestial Empress said, "Qin Zhong, Qin, come in." The 2 burly men in purple and gold armor immediately walked into the hall. Celestial Empress said, "Accompany Tian-er to the spiritual state. Remember to protect Tian-er. If anything happens to him, you know the consequences." "Yes, we swear to protect His Highness with our lives." The 2 knelt on one knee and said respectfully. Celestial Empress nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. "You decide when to go. I have other things to do." Qin Feiyang bowed and said, "Mother, take care." "Farewell, Celestial Empress." After seeing off Celestial Empress respectfully, Qin Zhong and Qin Yi stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang with a sly smile on their faces. Qin Yi moved closer to Qin Feiyang and chuckled. "Your Highness, what's so fun about the spiritual state? Uncle will take you to a more fun place." "Where?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Qin Yi glanced at the door and saw no one, so he whispered, "Fragrant moon brothel." Qin Feiyang was stunned. He smiled bitterly and said helplessly, "Uncle Qin Yi, I'm still a child." Fragrant Moon Brothel was the most famous restaurant in the imperial capital. More importantly, it was a brothel. "You're 10 years old. You're still young. Go and see those nobles and marquises. They fool around there every day. Even your brothers, including the eldest prince, sneak there every now and then to have fun. Your Highness, it's not that I want to criticize you, but all you do is cultivate and read books. It's too boring. It's life. You should live it splendidly and learn to enjoy it." The 2 instigated. Qin Feiyang was amused. "It seems that you 2 are regulars there too." Qin Zhong's expression changed as he hurriedly said, "Your Highness, you can't say that. If your mother finds out, we'll both be finished." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Okay, I won't tell Mother. Let's go to the spiritual state first. As for Fragrant Moon Brothel, we'll talk about it when we come back. That's more like it. Let's go. I'll take you to the pagoda," Qin Yi said. "Pagoda?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Why hadn't he heard of this place? Chapter 644. On the peak of the mountain sat a huge ancient pagoda. The ancient pagoda was dark and exuded an ancient aura. On the front of the ancient pagoda, 2 bold words were engraved. Pagoda. In front of the pagoda, an old man sat cross-legged. This person was dressed in white, had white hair and a white beard, and exuded an otherworldly aura. Qin Feiyang looked at the old man and realized that he had never seen him before. Qin Yi bowed to the old man and said, "Elder Qin, we are under the orders of the Empress to bring His Highness the 14th Prince to the spiritual state. Please open the pagoda door." The old man opened his eyes. They were not cloudy at all and were shining brightly. Glancing at Qin Yi and Qin Yi, the old man looked at Qin Feiyang, stood up, and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Your Highness." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Senior, you don't have to be so polite." Even Qin Yi and Qin Yi were so respectful. This old man was obviously not an ordinary person. I've long heard that your highness is talented and outstanding. Now that I've seen you, you are indeed extraordinary. The old man smiled. Qin Feiyang was a little embarrassed and shook his head. Senior, you flatter me. I really don't deserve it. Talented but not arrogant. Successful but not arrogant. You have a good temperament. The old man nodded with a smile, seemingly praising Qin Feiyang. Then he turned around and stretched out his old arm. Battle chi gushed out of his index finger and merged into the pagoda door. Clang! Immediately, the pagoda door slowly opened, and a magnificent aura rushed out. The old man said, "The teleportation altar to the spiritual state is on the first level. Go in yourselves. Remember, don't run around." Understood. Qin Yi and Qin Feiyang bowed and replied, then led Qin Feiyang into the pagoda. The pagoda door also closed. Qin Feiyang looked at everything in front of him curiously. The space here was about 100 meters wide. 9 blood-red altars were neatly arranged on the ground, all emitting an ancient and mysterious aura. Beside the 9 altars, there was a stone tablet with different words engraved on it. Spiritual state, cloud state, crane state, Yuzhou Fengzhou, etc. Qin Feiyang followed Qin Yi and Qin Yu to the stone tablet with the spiritual state engraved on it. Qin Zhong said, "This altar leads to the spiritual state." Qin Feiyang asked doubtfully, "Is there an altar on the second floor as well?" This. Qin Zhong hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. "Your Highness, I really can't say that." "All right." Qin Feiyang shrugged helplessly. Qin Zhong smiled apologetically. Battle chi surged out and flowed into the altar. Boom! All of a sudden, the blood-colored altar shone brightly. Qin Yi grabbed Qin Feiyang's arm and stepped onto the altar, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. In the spiritual state, in the air above a mountain range outside the city, whoosh! 3 figures appeared out of thin air. They were Qin Feiyang and Qin Zhong. As soon as he appeared, Qin Yi used a trace of battle chi to support Qin Feiyang. Because Qin Feiyang couldn't fly yet, Qin Zhong glanced around and looked at the city not far away. He smiled and said, "That should be the city." Qin Feiyang lowered his head to take a look, and his expression froze. The appearance of the city was completely different from the city in his dream. It was extremely unfamiliar. After a long time, Qin Feiyang came back to his senses and said, "Uncle Qin Zhong, go and find out if there are these people in the city." "Who?" Qin Zhong asked. "Ren Wushuang, Lu Xingchen, Dong Jungyang, Dongfang Wuhan, Morong Xiong, Shenmei Shenlong, Jiangwei Wang Hong. And a few big families, Lu family, Dong family, Xiao family, Shen family," Qin Feiyang said. "Okay, I'll go now." Qin Zhong nodded and disappeared in a flash. "Your Highness, have you been to the spiritual state?" Qin Yi looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Seeing Qin Feiyang say the names without hesitation, he felt as if he lived here. Qin Feiyang said, "In my dream." "In your dream?" Qin Yi was slightly stunned. Then, he shook his head helplessly and didn't say anything else. Swish. Soon, Qin Zhong returned. "How was it?" Qin Feiyang looked at him anxiously. Qin Zhong shook his head and said, "Your Highness, those people and those families you mentioned, none of them exist." "What?" Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. He couldn't accept it. Qin Yi couldn't help but say, "Your Highness, allow me to say something. You can't take the things in your dreams seriously." Qin Feiyang said, "Next place, Butterfly Valley." "Where is Butterfly Valley?" The two were suspicious. Although they knew about the spiritual state, they had never been here, so they weren't familiar with the various places in the spiritual state. Qin Feiyang said, "Just fly in the direction I point." Under Qin Feiyang's guidance, they soon arrived above Butterfly Valley. However, looking around, there was no valley, no butterflies, no ugly old woman, and no teleportation altar to the forgotten land. Qin Feiyang was in a daze. Could it be that none of the things in the dream were real? Qin Zhong and Qin Yi looked at each other, not knowing how to persuade him. A moment later, Qin Yi smiled and said, "Your Highness, where are we going next?" Since they couldn't persuade him, they would follow His Highness' wishes. Qin Feiyang came back to his senses and asked, "Do you know who the spiritual state's mansion master is?" "We don't know." The two shook their heads. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "That's not right. The mansion masters of the 9 states go to the imperial capital every 10 years. How can you not know? There is indeed such a thing. But every time, the emperor goes to the back mountain to meet them. Why don't I ask the emperor? Qin Zhong said. Forget it. Father is busy every day. Don't disturb him for such trivial matters. Qin Feiyang shook his head, pondered for a moment and said, Next, let's go to Yin City. Above Yin City, swish, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 appeared out of thin air. Qin Zhong asked, Who are you going to ask about this time? Qin Feiyang said, Ask about a person called Yin. However, his words came to an abrupt halt. Qin Zhong asked suspiciously, Yin what? Yin what? Qin Feiyang also asked himself in his heart. He clearly thought of a name before. Why did he suddenly forget it? What happened? Suddenly, he remembered again. He wanted to ask about Yin Nanshan. Go and ask if there is a person called Yin Nanshan and someone called Jiang. Speaking of this, Qin Feiyang's memory blurred again. He tried hard to recall for a moment and said, Right, Jiang Jingyi. Okay. Qin Zhong nodded and quickly rushed down. Qin Feiyang looked down at Yin City, his eyes full of confusion. Yin Nanshan and Jiang Jingyi were such familiar names. Why did it take him so long to remember? Alas, at this moment, a soft sigh came into Qin Feiyang's mind. Who is it? Qin Feiyang was shocked and looked around. Your Highness, what's wrong? Qin also looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Why is there no one? Qin Feiyang frowned and shook his head. Nothing, maybe I'm hallucinating. But before his voice died away, a black shadow appeared out of thin air in front of him. Qin Feiyang looked at the black shadow with bewilderment. The black shadow's voice came into Qin Feiyang's mind again. How long are you going to stay here? What do you mean? Qin Feiyang frowned. Your Highness, who are you talking to? When Qin heard Qin Feiyang speak again, the bewilderment in his eyes grew even stronger. He followed Qin Feiyang's gaze but saw nothing. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Qin and asked, Didn't you see it? There's a black shadow there. A black shadow? Qin looked again, but there was still nothing. The black shadow glanced at Qin Feiyang and said, Here, only you can see me. No one else can see or hear what I say. Why? Qin Feiyang was surprised. The black shadow said, Because this is an illusion. Everything in front of you is the manifestation of your obsession. Boom. As soon as he said this, Qin Feiyang's mind trembled. Are you confused now? Why did you suddenly forget the names of Yin Nanshan and Jiang Jingyi? The black shadow said again. Qin Feiyang nodded. Let me tell you, if you don't recognize reality, not only will you forget Yin Nanshan and Jiang Jingyi, but you will also forget Wolf King and Fatso. Even what you have experienced in the past 10 years, the people and things you have met, will gradually fade in your mind. Until the end, you will completely forget. The black shadow said. Why is it like this? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Because the bridge of helplessness is a test of your willpower. If your willpower is not strong enough, you will be trapped in the illusion forever. When you've forgotten everyone and everything, that will be the time of your death. Child, I understand you. You yearn for family and a carefree pure land in your heart. You yearn for those painful things in the past to never happen. That's why I didn't remind you immediately. However, no matter how beautiful this place is, it is only fake. You can't continue like this. Otherwise, you will never be able to leave this illusion, return to the imperial capital, and see your real mother. Face it bravely. Don't lose your life because of your greed for a moment of beauty. That will only make you more regretful. The black shadow sighed. This is an illusion. Qin Feiyang scanned the sky, the earth, the mountains, and the rivers. There was still a trace of disbelief in his eyes. It was not easy for him to believe and accept all this, but now someone suddenly came out and told him that it was all fake. He could not accept such a change in his heart. The black shadow said, You don't believe me? Qin Feiyang roared. I don't even know who you are. Why should I believe you? Is it important who I am? The black shadow was puzzled. Qin Feiyang said angrily. Of course it is important. Because only when I know your identity can I judge whether this place is real or not. It seems that your obsession is deeper than I thought. But I won't blame you. If it were any other child back then, they would have broken down long ago. It's not easy for you to be strong enough to get to where you are today. The Black Shadow sighed deeply. Since you know about that, then you should know how much I want to live now. Why do you have to disrupt it? Do you want to hear my heartfelt words? I really want to live here forever, even if everything here is fake. When Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he lowered his head with an incomparably desolate expression. I understand, but have you thought about it? If you die in the illusion, what will happen to your mother in the imperial capital? If she knows that her favorite child died outside, how sad will she be? And Qin Yuan, he has told you countless times that no matter what difficulties you encounter, you must be strong and brave. If you give up here, can you live up to his expectations? The Black Shadow roared. Qin Feiyang's body shook like a bolt from the blue. The Black Shadow sighed softly and said, Child, wake up. For your mother, for your uncle, and for yourself. Qin Feiyang's face was full of pain. After a long time he said, What do I have to do to break this illusion? The Black Shadow said, The fetters in your heart are your parents. Only by destroying them will the illusion disappear. And with a thought, they will be turned into ashes. What? Qin Feiyang suddenly looked up at the Black Shadow. Even if it was fake, he couldn't do it. The Black Shadow said, This is the only way. Qin Feiyang clenched his hands so hard that his nails had sunk into his palms and blood was flowing. After a while, he loosened his hands and said, Give me some time. The Black Shadow nodded and said, Okay, but I have to remind you that you have at most an hour. So short. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. An hour would pass in the blink of an eye. What could he do? There's one more thing to tell you. Wolf King and Ren Wuxuang have also fallen into the illusion. You'd better save them quickly. The Black Shadow said again. What? Qin Feiyang's expression changed. The Black Shadow said, But don't worry, their lives won't be in danger for the time being. Can't you say it all at once? Qin Feiyang looked at him helplessly and breathed a sigh of relief. There's a question I want to ask you. What question? The Black Shadow asked. Since this place is an illusion created by my desire, why didn't the imperial capital change while the spiritual state changed? The ancient castle disappeared, and people like Uncle Yuan and Ren Wuxuang didn't even show up? Qin Feiyang frowned. The Black Shadow said, Because the illusion wants you to believe that all of this is real. Qin Feiyang understood. All of this was to confuse his mind, because if everything in the illusion was the same as everything in reality, he would definitely be suspicious. So, the illusion removed everything that had happened in the past 10 years, leaving only the people and things in the imperial capital, and made him return to the time when he was 10 years old. In this way, he would believe that all of this was real, and then he would continue to fall into the illusion until he was doomed eternally. What a terrifying illusion. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. He looked at the Black Shadow and said, One last question. Who are you? Why can you appear in my illusion? When the time is right, you will naturally know who I am. The Black Shadow said with a smile, and instantly disappeared without a trace. The time is not right again. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. He looked down at the ground below with a trace of disappointment in his eyes. Your Highness, what's wrong with you? What illusion? What illusion? What Uncle Yuan? Who the hell are you talking to? Qin Yi, on the other hand, was so anxious that he was about to explode. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Don't worry, I'm fine. Fine. Chapter 645. Soon after, Qin Zhong returned and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. He shook his head and said, Your Highness, the two people you want to inquire about don't exist. Qin Feiyang said, Then forget it. Let's go back to the capital. In this short time, he had completely forgotten Yin Nanshan and Jiang Jingyi. Even the memories of Luo Qingzhu and the others began to blur. He was worried that if he didn't return to the capital, everyone would forget him. Qin Zhong nodded and said, Okay, let's go to the state capital to find the transmission altar. No need. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Since everything here was transformed by his obsession, it was only a matter of thought to go where he wanted to go. Swish. His mind moved slightly. Sure enough, the scenery in front of him changed rapidly. The next moment, He and Qin Zhong appeared in the garden outside the bedroom. Qin Zhong and Qin Zhong were very surprised. What was going on? The two were about to ask Qin Feiyang how he did it. Qin Feiyang was the first to speak. Uncles, please help me call mother and imperial father over. The two were slightly stunned and didn't understand. Go quickly. Qin Feiyang didn't explain, and there was a majesty in his tone that couldn't be disobeyed. Okay. The two nodded repeatedly, turned around and quickly flew away. Qin Feiyang stood alone in the garden, his eyes full of confusion. Although everything here was fake, he still wanted to do something for his parents before it ended. But what could he do in half an hour? Swish! But just as he was deep in thought, a black figure appeared in the sky above his head. This person's appearance was exactly the same as Qin Feiyang in the real world. Thick black hair draped over his shoulders, and a black robe set off his tall figure. Those dark eyes were like two bottomless pits, captivating the soul. But the difference was that this Qin Feiyang had a very strong hostility between his eyebrows. Moreover, as soon as this black-clothed Qin Feiyang appeared, time in this world seemed to stop. The stream stopped flowing. The flowers and plants no longer swayed. The palace maids and guards in the distance remained motionless. Everything stopped. He looked down at Qin Feiyang and said angrily, "Everything here is what you wanted. Do you really want to destroy it?" Qin Feiyang was shocked. He raised his head and looked at the black-clothed Qin Feiyang. His pupils shrank as he asked in surprise, "Who are you?" The black-clothed Qin Feiyang said, "I am you and you are me. We are both Qin Feiyang." Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled, and he said, "Impossible, there is only one Qin Feiyang, and that is me." The black-clothed Qin Feiyang sneered. "Then tell me, why do I exist? How did he appear in your illusion?" "How would I know? Tell me, who are you? What's the purpose of impersonating me?" Qin Feiyang said angrily, "We are the same person. How can I impersonate you? And my appearance is to stop you from destroying this illusion." The black-clothed Qin Feiyang said. "Why?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "Because he is your obsession and your inner demons." At this moment, the black shadow appeared again. Inner demons? Qin Feiyang's body trembled. He actually had inner demons. When a person's obsession is too deep, he will gradually produce inner demons. Before, the inner demons did not appear because he was not formed yet. Now you have entered the illusion. Believe all this. The inner demons have finally met the opportunity and were successfully born. The black shadow explained. The black-clothed Qin Feiyang said angrily, "You old thing, aren't you annoying? If it weren't for you running out again and again, he wouldn't have found out that all this was fake." The black shadow ignored him and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "You need to defeat the inner demons by yourself. I can't help you. I can only give you a hint. Stick to your beliefs." The black-clothed Qin Feiyang roared. "This is between me and him. Why do you care? Get out. I will leave even if you don't tell me." The black shadow glanced at the black-clothed Qin Feiyang indifferently, looked at the original Qin Feiyang, and said, "Remember my words." After that, the black shadow disappeared without a trace. Beliefs? Qin Feiyang muttered to himself, not understanding the meaning of this sentence. He looked up at the black-clothed Qin Feiyang and said, "Since you are my obsession, you should understand that everything here must be destroyed. With me here, you are delusional." The black-clothed Qin Feiyang sneered. "Is that so?" Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and said, "You are just my inner demons. What ability do you have to stop me?" Not only did the illusion have to be destroyed, but the inner demons also had to be eliminated. According to ancient records, the inner demons would not only affect a person's state of mind, but also affect their future cultivation. Even to a certain extent, they would kill the original consciousness and replace it. What it meant was, if the inner demons were allowed to grow, sooner or later, Qin Feiyang's consciousness would be erased by the inner demons, and then this body would be controlled by the inner demons. However, hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the inner demons not only did not panic, but also looked up to the sky and laughed. "What are you laughing at?" Qin Feiyang frowned, and a premonition of uneasiness rose in his heart. "Have you forgotten? You are only a 9-star martial master now. You don't even have battle chi or battle arts. Look at me again. I have the cultivation of the real world. If I want to kill you now, it will be as easy as flipping my hand. But you still want to get rid of me. Aren't you naive? The inner demon sneered. Hearing these words, Qin Feiyong looked at the inner demons in surprise. The cultivation of the inner demons was indeed a one-star war master. The inner demons looked down at Qin Feiyong from above and said, I'll give you a chance now. As long as you don't destroy this place, I won't kill you. Qin Feiyong said, if we don't destroy the illusion, you and I will die in the end. So what if I die? Tell me, haven't you been tired of living all these years? In order to return to the imperial capital, in order to take revenge, you have put in so much effort. But where is the imperial capital now? Where is the enemy? Even if you see that enemy, what can you do? But it's different here. Look at how beautiful everything is in front of you. Those things that made you suffer didn't happen. So, I'd rather stay here and enjoy this last hour of good time than go out and continue to suffer. The inner demons said. Qin Feiyong was silent. He couldn't refute. Because the inner demons were born from his obsession. What he said was naturally his heart. A moment later, Qin Feiyong sighed. I thought so too, but we have to face reality. I don't want my mother in the real world to be sad when she hears the news of my death. The inner demons frowned. So you insist on destroying this place? Qin Feiyong nodded. If that's the case, then don't blame me for being impolite. The heart demon's viciousness surged, and a monstrous might surged towards Qin Feiyong with the force of toppling mountains and overturning seas. Qin Feiyong immediately felt the aura of death enveloping him. In front of a one-star war sect, a 9-star martial master had no power to resist. Was he going to die just like that? He asked himself. Was dying like this considered relief? No, this wasn't relief. This was a sign of cowardice. But what could he do to break this killing trap? Before the Black Shadow left, he had specially instructed him to persevere in his beliefs. But what was this belief? The monstrous might had already pressed down, and Qin Feiyong's life was hanging by a thread. But at this moment, his eyes suddenly blossomed with a brilliant light, like 2 bright moons. He understood. Returning to the imperial capital, seeing his mother, and taking revenge, this was his belief. As long as his belief was there was still hope. Boom! The next moment, a powerful aura rushed out from Qin Feiyong's body. His cultivation was like a volcanic eruption, crazily soaring. Martial sect. War king. War emperor. War sect. Moreover, his thin and small body was also growing taller. I will persevere in my beliefs and maintain my original heart. No one, no matter what, will be able to stop my footsteps. Finally, Qin Feiyong regained his true appearance, carrying a monstrous aura. He broke through the pressure of the inner demons, rushed into the sky, and stood opposite the inner demons. His body was as tall and straight as a pine tree. His long hair danced in the wind. At this moment, he was like a war god that had returned, domineering and unparalleled. He actually recovered his cultivation. The inner demons' pupils contracted. Qin Feiyong looked at the inner demons coldly and said, Do you want to dissipate on your own? Or do you want me to personally erase you? Choose. Haha. The inner demons laughed out loud. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his black clothes fluttered in the wind, as if a demon god had descended to the world. Qin Feiyong said, Looks like I have to personally erase you. Erase me? Are you joking? Although you have recovered your cultivation now, I also know the battle arts that you know. What right do you have to kill me? The inner demon's black eyes shone brightly, and he raised his hand and pointed in the air. Ultimate Void. A formless energy immediately surged toward Qin Feiyong like a tidal wave, covering the sky and covering the earth. Is that so? Then I'll just have to experience how strong I, Qin Feiyong, am. Qin Feiyong said expressionlessly. He also raised his arm and performed the ultimate void. Boom! The 2 invisible forces collided with a loud bang, and the palace and garden below instantly turned into ashes. At the same time, the 2 people in the sky each retreated dozens of feet, and a trace of blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. Not bad. Good Yuan sword art. The inner demons grinned, and a red sword aura surged out. 30 sword shadows appeared out of nowhere, carrying a sharp edge that could destroy the world, and slashed towards Qin Feiyang. "You're not bad either," Qin Feiyang said. With a wave of his hand, 30 sword shadows appeared in the air as well. Another internecine outcome. "I've told you, you can't kill me," the inner demons laughed. The 9-leaf fire lotus, the red sword soul, and the purple gold dragon soul soared into the clouds at the same time. The terrifying aura, the destructive edge, and the majestic dragon's might spread in all directions. At this moment, the world shook, and the void distorted. The clouds in the sky were like angry waves in a vast ocean, rolling crazily. "Is this the extent of my strength?" Qin Feiyang muttered to himself. He was the one who gave birth to the inner demons. Fighting the inner demons was the same as fighting himself. In the past, he did not think he was this strong. Boom. Chapter 646. It's useless. Whether it's fighting souls battle arts, or even the return in battle arts, I know them all. If we continue, we'll be tied at most. However, you don't have much time to waste. Because you only have half an hour here. Although you've recovered your cultivation now, there won't be any other changes. In the end, you'll still forget everyone, everything, and even battle arts and fighting souls. The inner demons laughed wildly. "Is that so? Then let me tell you. You'll be the one who disappears in the end," Qin Feiyang said. "I really don't know where you got your confidence from," the inner demons mocked. "My confidence comes from my belief. But you don't have belief, only desire in your heart. In fact, it's all my fault. I was too obsessed, otherwise you wouldn't have been born." Qin Feiyang sighed. "What's the use of saying so much nonsense? Only by fighting to the end will we know who will be the one who survives in the end. Come on." The inner demons roared to the sky. "You're right. Fighting is the best choice. Only one can survive today. This person must be me." Qin Feiyang's eyes shot out a fierce light. Accompanied by an earth-shattering sound, the 6 fighting souls cut across the sky at the same time and collided with each other. Immediately, a destructive wave, with this place as the center, surged out in all directions. Wherever it passed, the ground cracked and the void shook. The towering halls collapsed one after another. The rumbling was deafening and dust covered the sky. Puff! At the same time, Qin Feiyang and the inner demons spat out a mouthful of blood. However, Qin Feiyang only retreated a few feet before he stabilized his body. However, the inner demons was sent flying on the spot. Even his physical body cracked and blood stained the sky. How is this possible? The inner demons' face was full of disbelief. They had the same cultivation and the same fighting soul. But why was there such a huge gap between them? Although you have everything that I have, you are still the inner demons. Qin Feiyang looked at the inner demons without any emotion in his eyes. "Is that so?" The inner demons muttered to themselves. Suddenly they shouted hysterically, "I don't believe it." Boom! A blood-red light burst out of his body. His long hair and eyes quickly turned blood-red, and his fighting spirit soared into the sky. It was the battle character formula. Qin Feiyang sighed. Give up. No matter what, the inner demons were his obsession. He did not want to destroy them with his own hands. The word give up has never existed in your dictionary, and neither do I. Today either you die or I die. The inner demons rushed toward Qin Feiyang. All right, I'll fulfill your wish. Qin Feiyang nodded. He also activated the battle formula and rushed toward the inner demons. In an instant, the two of them converged. They raised their arms at the same time and activated the return formula. At the same time, a dazzling golden light appeared in their palms. Boom! The two big hands collided. It was as if a golden sun had exploded in the sky. Golden light shone in all directions and illuminated the sky for miles. Ah! The next moment, the inner demon screamed and was sent flying. Qin Feiyang also groaned and retreated. Blood kept dripping from the corner of his mouth. His face was pale, but the battle was over. The inner demons who were sent flying could be seen cracking at a speed visible to the naked eye. There was no way to repair them. Blood rained down, and the sky was dyed red. When the inner demon stabilized his body, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I can't accept this. I know. Qin Feiyang nodded. But you're right. The inner demons are inner demons after all. They don't have the will and belief of the original body. But I don't regret it. I also hope that you don't regret it and continue to walk on bravely. The inner demon said. At this moment, he didn't have the slightest bit of hostility. There was even a smile on his bleeding face. No matter what setbacks I encounter in the future, I will face them with strength. I won't regret it. Qin Feiyang also smiled. I believe in you, and I also wish you well. The inner demon smiled brightly. His body disintegrated, and then quickly dissipated between heaven and earth. Thank you, Qin Feiyang whispered. He was very gratified to be able to say goodbye to the inner demons in such a way. At least it proved that his inner demons also had a kind side. As soon as the inner demons disappeared, the time in this world also began to move. Everything that was still also woke up. But Qin Feiyang's appearance didn't change anymore. He looked at the ruins below, and the familiar imperial palace. There wasn't much nostalgia in his eyes. Whoosh! Soon, two figures broke through the air and landed beside Qin Feiyang. Who are you? The two of them looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. These two people were the Empress and the Emperor. Qin Feiyang looked up at the two of them and said with a smile, I'm your child. Child. The two of them looked at each other. Their eyes were full of suspicion. Did they have such a child? Mother, I'm really happy to be able to meet you here in advance. And today is also the most peaceful day I've had in more than 10 years. I really hope that time can slow down a little. However, what should go will go in the end. What should disappear will disappear in the end. But mother, please believe in me. I will definitely return to the imperial capital, and it won't be long. Qin Feiyang ignored the expressions of the two of them, and said to himself. But when he said the last sentence, his dark eyes suddenly burst out with an incomparably firm light. As soon as he finished speaking, the Empress immediately collapsed and turned into specks of starlight, drifting between heaven and earth. What did you do? Seeing this, the Emperor immediately stared at Qin Feiyang angrily. What did I do? I want to ask you, why did you treat me like that more than 10 years ago? Qin Feiyang roared. More than 10 years ago? The Emperor frowned. He really didn't know what Qin Feiyang was talking about. Looking at the Emperor's expression, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but shake his head and laugh at himself. This was just an illusion. The benevolent father in front of him was only a figment of his imagination. How could he know about those things? Father, this may be the last time I call you this in my life. Take care, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. He looked at the Emperor for a moment, and no longer hesitated. With a slight thought, the Emperor's figure also collapsed in an instant. Crack! Boom! As soon as the Emperor and Empress disappeared, the sky was suddenly filled with violent winds, lightning and thunder. Dazzling lightning fell, the void collapsed, the sky shattered, and the earth sank. Boom! In less than 3 breaths, the world completely collapsed and fell into darkness. At the same time, on the bridge of helplessness, a long sigh sounded and spread slowly. Qin Feiyang, who was standing under the door frame, had a touch of sadness between his eyebrows. He looked up at the blood-red sun in the sky. The illusion was finally over. However, everything that happened in the illusion was clearly imprinted in his mind. His longing for his mother was unprecedentedly strong. He wished that he could see his mother in the real world right now, even if it was just a glance. Alas, after a long time, he sighed deeply, collected his thoughts, and lowered his head to look ahead. At that moment, his pupil shrank. In front of him was a flat grassland, about a few hundred meters long, and at the end of the grassland was an endless sea of blood. In the sea of blood, the wind whistled and the blood waves surged to the sky, filled with a shocking evil spirit. And on the shore of the sea of blood, there were small boats floating. They were only 3 meters long and 1 meter wide, and were dark all over. In fact, it was more appropriate to call them canoes. But these small boats not only did not have sails, but also did not have paddles. The boats were also empty. In Qin Feiyang's mind, there were countless questions. Where was this? What were these small boats for? Suddenly, he found a stone tablet on the shore, on which 2 shocking words were engraved. Sea of Bitterness. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled slightly. He did not expect that there was really a sea of bitterness. The meaning of these small boats was clear at a glance. According to folklore, the other side was on the other side of the sea of bitterness. In other words, they had to take these small boats and cross this sea of blood to reach the other side. But in Qin Feiyang's mind, another question crawled up. He remembered that before entering the illusion, behind the door frame was still the endless bridge of helplessness. But why did he wake up from the illusion and directly come to the sea of bitterness? He looked down and was surprised to find that he was still standing on the bridge of helplessness. He hurriedly turned around, and the familiar door frame immediately entered his line of sight. And at this moment, there was not only Dongfang Wuhan and Murong Xiong beside him, but also Wolf King, Ren Wushuang and others. But now, they were all standing on the bridge motionless. Obviously, as the Black Shadow said, they were all trapped in the illusion. Qin Feiyang glanced at them and looked over the door frame at the bridge of helplessness behind. At that moment, he was stunned. The bridge of helplessness was only a dozen meters long? He clearly remembered that before stepping on the bridge of helplessness, he saw that the bridge of helplessness was winding and endless. After walking for a long time, they came to the door frame. However, at this moment, the bridge of helplessness in front of him was only a dozen meters long. Wasn't this too ridiculous? And under the bridge of helplessness, it was no longer a black ocean, but a black river. There was also a strange situation. The people of Feng State and Yu State, as well as Wan Qiu and the others, were also on the bridge of helplessness. Moreover, at this moment, their eyes were closed, and they were actually walking in place? What was going on? Qin Feiyang racked his brains to think. Suddenly, he thought of the illusion. He looked at the door frame again, and then looked at the sea of bitterness. After a moment of silence, a wry smile crept onto his face. In fact, the bridge of helplessness he saw now was the real bridge of helplessness. And the bridge of helplessness he saw at the beginning was just an illusion to confuse them. In other words, from the moment they stepped on the bridge of helplessness, they had already fallen into the illusion, but they didn't know it. And the current situation of Wan Qiu and the others could also be explained. It was estimated that they were in the illusion and hadn't reached the door frame yet, so they kept walking. In fact, they were always in the same place. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but have a trace of fear in his eyes. This bridge of helplessness was really terrifying. Chapter 647. But fortunately, everything was over. The next problem to consider was how to wake up Wolf King and the others from the illusion. Wake up, all of you! All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang roared. Wolf King immediately shuddered and opened his eyes, which were full of confusion. It worked. Qin Feiyang was a little stunned. He just tried it casually, but he didn't expect that it would really wake up Wolf King. Wolf King glanced at the blood sea, then at the bridge of helplessness and asked suspiciously, "Little Qinzi, where is this?" "It's the sea of bitterness in front of us." Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation. Wolf King nodded and said, "It turns out that what I saw before was just an illusion." He looked a little disappointed. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "What did you see in the illusion?" "I saw a gold mountain, countless treasures, and even the flower of life and the fire of life." Wolf King chuckled. Thinking of it now, his eyes couldn't help but turn green and drool. "That's it." Qin Feiyang was stunned. "What else? I'm such a simple wolf. How could I be trapped there? Even without your reminder, I can walk out of the illusion by myself." Wolf King was disdainful. "Narcissist." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. But then again, apart from being a little shameless, Wolf King really didn't have any strong desire. The only thing was that he liked treasures, but that was only for a short time. Take the fire of life and Mu Tianyang's ribs for example. At first he liked them very much, but after a long time, he didn't even bother to look at them. It could be said that Wolf King's heart was actually purer than anyone else's. Qin Feiyang looked at Ren Wushuang and the others again and raised his eyebrows. None of them woke up. "Their hearts must be very dirty." Wolf King smirked. "Do you know how to speak?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Wolf King chuckled and said, "Except for Little Run." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at it. However, what Wolf King said made sense. These people were all hiding many things in their hearts. It would not be easy to wake them up. However, if he could enter their illusions like Black Shadow, it would not be difficult. However, he could not do such a thing. Pa! Suddenly, crisp slapping sounds could be heard one after another. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. He looked in the direction of the voice, and his expression froze. At this moment, the Wolf King is raising his claws and continuously slapping Dongfang Wuhan and Morong Xiong. I say, can you not take advantage of me when I'm down? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Fuck, what are you talking about? I'm helping them, do you understand? Wolf King glared at Qin Feiyang angrily, turned around and continued to slap the two of them, his eyes full of smirks. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly. Not long after, Dongfang Wuhan and Morong Xiong's faces were swollen like pig heads, and blood was flowing from their mouths. But even so, the two of them showed no signs of waking up. Fuck, they can't even wake up like this? What good thing did these two bastards encounter in the illusion? Wolf King's claws hurt, and he looked at the two of them strangely. Nothing good. But don't kill them now. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. Wolf King raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion. We have already reached the sea of bitterness, shouldn't we end their lives? No hurry. Qin Feiyang shook his head, and whispered a few words in Wolf King's ear. I see. Wolf King suddenly understood and said with a smirk. You are really hateful, but I like it. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Well, quickly think of a way to wake them up. Take your time to think about it. I'm going to get rid of Wan Qiu and the other trash. Wolf King's eyes flashed with killing intent, and he walked towards Wan Qiu and the others. Qin Feiyang didn't stop him. On the contrary, he agreed with Wolf King's approach, because this was the way of the world, take advantage of your illness to kill you. But just as Wolf King entered the door frame, a blood-red light curtain suddenly appeared on the door frame, and bounced Wolf King out. With a bang, he smashed into the grass under the bridge of helplessness, causing Wolf King to grimace in pain. Qin Feiyang looked at the light curtain in surprise. Fuck, you dare to hurt me, you are really looking for trouble. See if I don't destroy you today. Wolf King got up and angrily rushed towards the door frame. Don't go. Qin Feiyang hurriedly grabbed him and said in a deep voice. The existence of this door should be to cut off our way back. What do you mean? Wolf King was stunned. Qin Feiyang said. That is to say, as long as you pass the test you can't go back. So we can't kill them now. Wan Qiu and the others were close by, but they couldn't get close. This made Wolf King very unhappy. There is still a long way to go, what's the rush? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at it, and lowered his head to ponder. Suddenly, an idea came to him. The reason why they fell into the illusion was because they were on the bridge of helplessness. If they left the bridge of helplessness, would they wake up naturally? Thinking of this, he waved his hand and led Wolf King, Run Wushuang and the others into the castle. It worked. As soon as they entered the castle, Run Wushuang and the others opened their eyes one after another. Their eyes were full of confusion. Ouch, my face hurts. Suddenly, Morong Xiong wailed. Dongfang Wuhan came back to his senses, touched his burning face, and asked in confusion, Why does my face hurt too? You also hurt. Morong Xiong looked at Dongfang Wuhan in surprise. Dongfang Wuhan also looked at Morong Xiong. Suddenly, the two of them flew into a rage. Who did it? The two of them glanced at the crowd gloomily, especially Wolf King, who was stared at by the two of them, because only this damned scoundrel could do such a thing. Don't look at me. When I and little Qin Zi woke up from the illusion, you were already like this. I don't know who did it. Wolf King shook his head. Seeing Wolf King's innocent look, Fatso and Shunmei next to him blushed. Although they didn't see what happened outside with their own eyes, hearing the conversation between Wolf King and Qin Feiyang, they could imagine that it must be Wolf King's doing. However, whether it was Dongfang Wuhan, Morong Xiong, or Run Wushuang and Dong Junyang, they didn't notice the abnormality of the two of them. At this moment, they were all looking at Qin Feiyang and Wolf King in surprise. Dong Junyang said, Qin Feiyang, what is the illusion that Wolf King just said? Qin Feiyang briefly explained again. After listening, they suddenly woke up and couldn't help but feel a lingering fear in their hearts. Lu Xingchen sighed deeply, looked at Qin Feiyang, shook his head and said, I didn't expect that I would owe you another favor. Wolf King said lightly, as long as you don't follow some people's example and bite the hand that feeds you. While speaking, he glanced at Dongfang Wuhan and Murong Xiong. Of course, Lu Xingchen said with a smile. On the other hand, Dongfang Wuhan and Murong Xiong's faces were extremely ugly. They dared to conclude that this face must be Wolf King's masterpiece. But even if they knew, what could they do? Wolf King's strength was obvious to all. Even if he rode on their heads and peed on them, they could only endure it. Well, we have passed the bridge of helplessness. Next is the sea of bitterness. I hope that everyone can unite and pass this last test. Qin Feiyang said. Hearing, everyone was refreshed. As long as they successfully passed the sea of bitterness and reached the other side, they could enter the sacred place they dreamed of, the capital. At this moment, there couldn't be any more trouble. Dong Xingyang said. I'll say it first. If anyone dares to play any tricks, I, Dong Xingyang, will never be merciful. That's right. After working so hard for so long, I'm only one step away. I don't want to regret it for the rest of my life. Shen Long's eyes were also incomparably sharp. Everyone nodded. In fact, these words were purely for Dongfang Wuhan and Murong Xiong, because among all the people present, these two were the only ones who were not honest. Qin Feiyang glanced at everyone and said, I have one more thing to add. Everyone looked at him. Before we set off, Commander Wang Hong said that only the first 50 people who reached the other side could enter the capital. And now, except for Wan Qiu and others, people from other provinces may be ahead of us. So, if we encounter trouble in the sea of bitterness in the future, we should try our best to avoid it and try to catch up with them. Qin Feiyang said. The 9 provinces were Ling Province, Yin Province, Kong Province, Yu Province, He Province, Feng Province, Yu Province, Kuan Province, and Changzhou. Wan Qiu of Yu Province, Feng Wuxia of Kong Province, and the people of Feng Province and Yu Province could be ignored for the time being, because they were still on the bridge of helplessness. And everyone knew how many people there were in Yin Province and He Province. After Pan Wuyan's death, only Emma Wuxian, Yin Tianfeng, Pei Sanshi, and Lu Yinfeng were left in Yun Province. Tan Wu was left in He Province. But they had never met in Kuan Province and Changzhou, so many people didn't know. What if the people of the 2 provinces added up to more than 50? Then even if they reached the other side, they wouldn't be qualified to enter the capital. So, they had to race against time now. Lu Xingchen and the others naturally understood this logic. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, they all nodded in agreement. Qin Feiyang didn't hesitate and led everyone to appear on the bridge of helplessness again. He didn't pay attention to Wan Qiu and the others, and immediately walked down the bridge of helplessness and rushed towards the sea of bitterness. Standing by the sea and looking at the endless sea of blood, the group's expression was particularly heavy. Dong Xingyang said worriedly, I wonder what danger is hidden in the sea of bitterness. Lu Xingchen said, no matter what danger there is, we must move forward. Ren Wushuang frowned slightly and looked at the stone tablet with the words Sea of Bitterness engraved on it. Her gaze focused and she said, look, there are some small words on the stone tablet. The group walked closer and took a look. There were indeed rows of small words, but the content was hair-raising. First, entering the Sea of Bitterness, there was no turning back. Once they turned back, they would immediately explode and die. They couldn't even turn back to look. Second, each canoe could only carry one person. If there was one more person, the canoe would immediately sink into the Sea of Bitterness. Third, once the canoe entered the Sea of Bitterness, it couldn't return, or it would sink into the sea. Fourth, the water in the Sea of Bitterness had a terrifying ability. It could wipe out the consciousness of living beings. The content clearly stated that if one fell into the Sea of Bitterness, they would lose their mind after 3 breaths and become an emotionless blood puppet. Jiang Wei swallowed and said in a low voice, do you think there are such blood puppets in the Sea of Bitterness? There must be. Chapter 648. Qin Feiyang's words were not without basis. The 9 regions' Great War would be held every 10 years. And today, the Great Qin Empire had been established for 10,000 years, and the Nine Regions' Great War had been held almost 1,000 times. One could imagine how many people had entered the Nine Nether Yellow Springs, and how many people had died in the Nine Nether Yellow Springs. So, in the Sea of Bitterness, there would definitely be blood puppets. Hearing Qin Feiyang's affirmative answer, everyone's heart couldn't help but sink to the bottom. Dongfang Wuhan said, "Junior brother Qin, why don't you send me to the castle?" As the king of the inner palace, it was very shameful to say such words. But there was nothing he could do. He was afraid. Between his life and his dignity, he chose his life without hesitation. "Senior brother Qin, help me too." Murong Xiong clenched his teeth and looked at Qin Feiyang as he pleaded. Ren Wushuang looked at the two of them angrily and said, "You are at least the best of the younger generation in my spiritual state. How can you be so cowardly?" Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a non-negotiable tone, "I won't allow you to help them." Dongfang Wuhan and Murong Xiong immediately lowered their heads in shame. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he looked at the two of them and said, "If you can really abandon your dignity, I can send you to the castle." "Feiyang!" Ren Wushuang shouted angrily. Qin Feiyang waved his hand at Ren Wushuang and quietly looked at Dongfang Wuhan and Murong Xiong. The two of them struggled for a moment before cupping their hands and saying, "Thank you, junior brother Qin." Obviously, they still chose to enter the castle. "You." Ren Wushuang stared at the two of them angrily and finally turned his head to look elsewhere. "Out of sight, out of mind. We are all brothers of the same sect. If you have the ability to help, then help. There is no need to thank me." Qin Feiyang smiled and waved his hand, sending the two of them to the castle. Subsequently, he then sent a sound transmission to Ren Wushuang. "Sister, you should also go to the castle, lest I worry. Do you think I'm them? If you want me to hide, why don't you just let me die?" Ren Wushuang snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang felt helpless. He lowered his head and looked at Wolf King. "You also go to the castle." "I'm not going." Wolf King turned his head, looking incomparably arrogant. "I must go," Qin Feiyang said coldly and directly sent Wolf King in. This was because Wolf King was too active and curious about everything. Who knew when he would turn around to take a look? Furthermore, he felt that the Sea of Bitterness was even more terrifying than what was described on the stone tablet. "What about you guys?" Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Xingqian and Dong Junyang. Lu Xingqian smiled and said to King Crocodile, who was lying on his shoulder, "You go and hide too." Since entering the gates of hell, King Crocodile had become the size of a palm and had been lying on his shoulder. As for King Crocodile's ability to transform, it was naturally given by Lu Xingqian. After all, Lu Xingqian was also one of the few best alchemists in the spiritual state. The transformation elixir was nothing to him. After saying that, Lu Xingqian waved his hand, and King Crocodile disappeared into thin air. Then he walked straight to the side of a small boat. Why did King Crocodile disappear? Looking at this scene, Ren Wushuang and the others were surprised. Among the people present, only Qin Feiyang knew what was going on, but he also felt that it was unbelievable. Back in the valley, Lu Xingqian admitted that he also had a space treasure. However, as the saying goes, seeing is believing and hearing is false. Therefore, Qin Feiyang did not fully believe it at that time. At this moment, King Crocodile's disappearance was undoubtedly the best proof. And from this point, it could be seen that Lu Xingqian did not intend to continue hiding his strength. Otherwise, he would not have sent King Crocodile into the space treasure in front of everyone's eyes. Sure enough, Lu Xingqian looked at the boundless sea of blood and smiled faintly. In this world, Qin Feiyang is not the only one who has a space treasure. Ren Wushuang and the others focused their eyes. At this moment, in their eyes, Lu Xingqian was like this sea of blood unfathomable. Finally, Dong Junyang, Shenlong, and Jiang Wei did not say a word. They all chose a small boat and used their actions to prove their determination. Qin Feiyang glanced at them and said again, "Sister, are you really not going in? I told you not to help them, but you insisted. Don't call me sister in the future." Humph! Ren Wushuang snorted and turned to walk towards a small boat. leaving Qin Feiyang with the back of his head. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and hurriedly followed him. Soon, he walked to a small boat and reached out to knock on the hull. He frowned immediately. The boat was made of an unknown wood. The texture was very hard, but no matter how hard it was only wood. Could it withstand the impact of the waves? One had to know. At this moment, the wind was blowing and the waves were rolling on the sea. As if seeing Qin Feiyang's worry, Lu Xingchen smiled faintly. Since we are here, let's go. Qin Feiyang nodded. Whoosh! The 6 of them jumped into the boat at the same time. Just as they jumped onto the boat, a scene that left them dumbfounded appeared. The storm on the sea had disappeared. At this moment, there were no waves on the sea. It was as calm as a pool of stagnant water. How could this be? They were surprised and bewildered. Lu Xingchen said, "The storm and waves we saw before should also be illusions to frighten us." Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and agreed with Lu Xingchen. On one side there were huge waves, and on the other side, there was a weak boat. Who would dare to drive a boat into the sea of bitterness? After all, in the face of such a situation, the first question that came to everyone's mind was that such a small boat could not sail in such huge waves. Because once it entered, it would definitely be overturned by the huge waves. In other words, this was a test of everyone's courage and courage. Lu Xingchen shook his head and smiled. There are tests for us everywhere. I have to admit that this place is really magical. Magical? Dong Zhengyang and the others looked at Lu Xingchen and could not help but roll their eyes. Could this be called magical? It was clearly a strange and ever-changing dangerous place that was impossible to guard against. Suddenly, Ren Wuxuang asked, "Do you know how to drive these boats?" Dong Zhengyang and the others were taken aback. It was only now that they realized that not only did the boat have no sails, but there were also no paddles. What to do? For a moment they were all at a loss. Lu Xingchen lowered his head and looked at the boat for a moment. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said with a smile, "I know how to drive it." They all looked at Lu Xingchen, including Qin Feiyang. Although this boat is made of wood, this kind of wood is comparable to divine iron. According to my observations, every single boat here can be considered a saint artifact. As long as we inject battle chi into it, we can drive the boat. And the speed of the boat is determined by the amount of battle chi we inject. In short, the more battle chi we inject, the faster it will go. Lu Xingchen said. They suddenly understood. Shen Long asked, "What is a holy weapon?" Dong Zhengyang, Jiang Wei, and Ren Wuxuang also looked at Lu Xingchen suspiciously. However, when Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Xingchen, his eyes were filled with disbelief. Lu Xingchen said with a smile, "Brother Qin must also know about holy weapons. If you want to know, ask him." The 4 of them looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. "Let's talk about it later." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. A wisp of red sword chi emerged and injected into the boat. Splash! The boat immediately moved forward slowly, and circles of ripples appeared on the sea. Really? Qin Feiyang was a little surprised. He couldn't help but look at Lu Xingchen again and shouted, "Remember, don't look back. Let's go." At that moment, Lu Xingchen and the others mobilized the battle chi in their sea of chi and drove the boat, following Qin Feiyang into the depths of the Blood Sea. From beginning to end, the 6 people's boats were all moving side by side, and they were all controlled at the same speed. In this way, if something happened to someone, the others could think of a way to rescue them in time. Although they couldn't look back in the sea of bitterness, they could still turn their heads to look to the left and right. Soon, the 6 boats entered the deep sea, and the journey was calm. The 6 people's nervous moods also slowly eased. Qin Feiyang glanced at Ren Wuxuang and the others, and secretly transmitted a message to Lu Xingchen. "How do you know about holy weapons? Don't tell me you saw it in an ancient book. I don't believe this nonsense." Lu Xingchen secretly laughed. "Holy weapons are not a secret in the capital. It's not strange that I know." "What do you mean? Are you also from the capital?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. Lu Xingchen was silent for a moment, and said with a faint smile, Kind of. Kind of?" Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Yes was yes, no was no. What did he mean by kind of? This was too ambiguous. "Feiyang, There's a problem with my boat. Wait for me. Suddenly, Ren Wushuang's voice sounded from behind. Qin Feiyang was shocked and instinctively turned his head to look, but suddenly remembered that he couldn't turn his head back, so he hurriedly turned his head back. What was going on? He looked to the left with a look of surprise, because Ren Wushuang's boat was on his left, next to him. In the end, he found that there was no problem with Ren Wushuang's boat, and it was still moving side by side with everyone. Moreover, at this moment, Ren Wushuang was also looking ahead, concentrating on steering the boat. But who was the one who made the sound from behind? Sensing Qin Feiyang's gaze, Ren Wushuang turned his head to look at him and asked in confusion, "Why are you looking at me?" Qin Feiyang transmitted, "Did you call me just now?" "Call you? I haven't spoken from the beginning to the end. When did I call you? You're out of your mind." Ren Wushuang rolled his eyes at him and directly turned his head to look forward, ignoring Qin Feiyang. She was still angry. "You didn't call me?" Qin Feiyang frowned, but Ren Wushuang, who had just turned his head, suddenly trembled and slowly turned his head to the back. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang's face changed and he shouted, "What are you doing? Turn back." Immediately, Ren Wushuang quivered and quickly turned his head back, his eyes full of surprise. At the same time, Qin Feiyang's shout also alarmed Lu Xingchen and the others. "What's going on? Wushuang, do you want to die?" They all looked at her in shock and anger. "I just heard my father's voice. He said he was behind us and told me to wait for him. He's not dead. He's still alive." Ren Wushuang looked at them and became more and more excited. "What? Uncle Ren is not dead?" Chapter 649. As people who grew up in the capital, they naturally knew Ren Duxing and knew about Ren Duxing's deeds. But wasn't Ren Duxing dead? How could he be in the underworld? "Xingchen, Uncle Ren's boat is about to sink, help Uncle Ren." "Zhengyang, Uncle Ren's boat is about to sink, help Uncle Ren." Suddenly, a voice came from behind and entered the ears of Lu Xingchen and Dong Zhengyang. The two of them were slightly stunned and immediately overjoyed. Ren Duxing was really behind, but then their faces suddenly changed. The boat was about to sink? How could this be? They must help Ren Duxing. The two of them immediately turned their heads and looked behind them. The prompt on the stone tablet was completely thrown to the back of their minds at this time. Back to Qin Feiyang. Hearing Ren Wushuang's words, he lowered his head and fell into deep thought. Lu Xingchen and the others didn't know, but he knew very well that Ren Duxing couldn't leave the ruins and couldn't appear here at all. But why would Ren Wushuang hear Ren Duxing's voice? The most important thing was that if Ren Duxing was really behind them, he should have heard it too. But just now, he didn't hear Ren Duxing's voice at all. In addition, the voice of Ren Wushuang he heard at the beginning was also strange. What was going on? Could it be? Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly trembled. He looked up at the crowd and happened to see Dong Zhengyang and Lu Xingchen who were turning their heads. Immediately, Qin Feiyang's face changed and he shouted, "This is an illusion, don't look back." Boom! As soon as these words came out, Lu Xingchen and Dong Zhengyang were like a bolt from the blue. Their bodies and minds trembled, and they hurriedly turned their heads. Cold sweat broke out all over their bodies. If it weren't for Qin Feiyang's timely reminder, they would have already turned around. Earlier, I also heard Ren Wushuang calling me from behind. However, when I asked her, she told me that she wasn't calling me. After that, Ren Wushuang immediately heard her father calling her. But as far as I know, Ren Duxing is not here at all. So, I'm sure that the voices we heard were illusions, Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Lu Xingchen frowned and nodded. That seems to be the case. I also heard Uncle Ren's voice just now. He said that the ship is about to sink, and asked me to help him. Dong Zhengyang said. I heard it too, and I said exactly the same thing. That's right. The sea of misery can make us hallucinate. Its goal is to lure us back and make us explode. Remember, no matter what you hear, don't turn around. If you can't control yourself, slap yourself. Qin Feiyang warned with a serious face. Pain can keep people awake. Understood. Dong Zhengyang and the other three nodded. It's just an illusion. But hearing these words, Ren Wuxiang muttered to herself, her face full of disappointment. Qin Feiyang glanced at her. He wanted to comfort her, but he didn't know how to do so. Suddenly, Ren Wuxiang looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "How can you be so sure that my father is not here?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and secretly scolded himself for being stupid. He accidentally let it slip. Ren Wuxiang said, "Don't try to lie to me. Tell me honestly, do you know something?" Hearing this, Lu Xingqian and the other three also looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and nodded. "I do know the whereabouts of your father." Ren Wuxiang was a very smart woman. Since she had already discovered the clues, no matter what he said now, it was impossible to eliminate Ren Wuxiang's suspicion. So it was better to simply admit it. Ren Wuxiang's delicate body trembled, and her breathing quickened. "Where is he? Tell me. He's really not dead." At the same time, Lu Xingqian and the other three looked at each other. Ren Duxing had been missing for so many years. Everyone had long believed that he had died, but they never thought that he was still alive. Since he was alive, then as Ren Wuxiang asked, where was Ren Duxing now? Looking at Ren Wuxiang's expectant face, Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and shook his head. "I can't tell you now." If Ren Wuxiang knew about Ren Duxing's current situation, he was sure that Ren Wuxiang would be even sadder than before. When she was sad, she would naturally be distracted, and the sea of bitterness was full of dangers. Once she was distracted, the consequences would be unimaginable. So, these things should wait until they left the 9 underworlds. But Ren Wuxiang didn't know Qin Feiyang's intentions. She thought that Qin Feiyang was deliberately hiding it from her. She said angrily, "Why can't you tell me? I'm his biological daughter. Don't I even have the right to know his whereabouts? I'm doing this for your own good. If you're worried, I can swear to God that Uncle Ren's life is not in any danger now." Qin Feiyang said, "Wuxiang, we all know that you miss Uncle Ren very much. But Qin Feiyang must have his reasons for not telling you. Don't ask anymore." Lu Xingqian persuaded. Ren Wuxiang frowned and glanced at Lu Xingqian. She said angrily, "Do you have the right to speak here? Shut up." Lu Xingqian shrugged and looked helplessly at Qin Feiyang. Then he turned his head to look at the sea of blood in front of him. There was an inexplicable light flashing in the depths of his eyes. Dong Xingyang, Shen Long, and Jiang Wei also tactfully looked away. Ren Wuxiang looked at Qin Feiyang again and asked, "When did you know?" Qin Feiyang said, "A long time ago." Ren Wuxiang said, "So you've been lying to me for a long time?" Qin Feiyang nodded. "You win." Ren Wuxiang looked at him coldly. After a long time, she gritted her teeth and said 3 words. Then, she turned her head and pursed her lips with a self-deprecating smile. She had always regarded Qin Feiyang as her younger brother, and the person she trusted the most. But she didn't expect that Qin Feiyang would lie to her. She was very disappointed. Alas, looking at Ren Wuxiang's side profile, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but sigh. Although he lied to Ren Wuxiang, he didn't want Ren Wuxiang to worry. Even if Ren Wuxiang was angry now, he didn't regret it. Of course, he could understand Ren Wuxiang's current mood, because any parent was the most loved and closest person to their children. If it were him today, he would also be angry. Whatever he wanted would come to him. "Tian'er, mother finally sees you. Wait for mother." A familiar voice came from behind. Qin Feiyang's body immediately trembled. "Tian'er, don't you want mother? Don't you miss mother? Look back and take a look at mother." This voice was constantly transmitted into Qin Feiyang's ears, with a sadness that couldn't be dissolved. "Mother." Qin Feiyang clenched his hands, and his eyes couldn't help turning red. Although he knew it was just an illusion, he still had an urge to look back. Because mother was his only weakness. "Tian'er, save me. Someone wants to kill me." Suddenly, the voice changed the topic and screamed in horror. "Damn it." Qin Feiyang cursed inwardly as he forcefully slapped his face. A bloody handprint immediately appeared on his face. At the same time, Ren Wuxiang and the others also showed pain and struggle. Obviously, they were also suffering at the moment. For the 6 of them, the current situation could be described as endless suffering. Even though they knew that this was an illusion, those familiar voices continued to tempt them. This was not only a mental torture, but also a mental devastation. It was worse than death. I can't stand it. I want to see who's behind this. Suddenly, Jiang Wei roared and turned his head to look. No! Qin Feiyang and the others hurriedly shouted. But it was too late. Jiang Wei had already completely turned his head away. But in his sight, there was no one. Only an endless sea of blood. Shenlong shouted. Jiang Wei, are you crazy? Turn back. I'm not crazy. Am I not living well now? I think the words on the stone tablet are simply alarmist. Jiang Wei sneered. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. Looking at it carefully, Jiang Wei did not show any signs of exploding. Was the so-called no turning back really just to scare them? But at the next moment, Jiang Wei's body suddenly exploded. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. In just an instant, Jiang Wei died, leaving only a scream echoing in the sky above the sea of blood, lingering for a long time. His body actually exploded and he died. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at this scene and were terrified to the extreme. Don't look, turn back. Qin Feiyang roared. Lu Xingchen and the others trembled and hurriedly turned their heads to look ahead. Damn bastard. If I have this ability, I will definitely make this sea of blood disappear. Shenlong roared. Is that so? As long as you turn back now, I will grant you supreme combat power to avenge your companions. At that moment, an extremely seductive voice entered Shenlong's ears. Really? Shenlong asked instinctively and turned his head to look. Qin Feiyang and the others were still sad about Jiang Wei's death. At this moment, when they saw Shenlong turn his head to look behind, their faces suddenly changed. Shenlong, what are you doing? Ren Wuxuang roared angrily. Shenlong suddenly quivered and hurriedly turned back. But it was too late. Accompanied by a scream, Shenlong's body also exploded and he died on the spot. Why did you turn back? Are you all idiots? Ren Wuxuang scolded and couldn't help but burst into tears. Qin Feiyang, Lu Xingchen, and Dong Jingyang were also sad. Along the way, everyone had seen Shenlong and Jiang Wei's performance, especially when they first entered the Death Swamp and were surrounded by Mo Wuxian and the others. In order to help everyone, the two of them risked their lives. If Qin Feiyang hadn't saved them, they would have died at that time. It could be said that they were the ones who didn't deserve to die the most, but now they ended up without a corpse. Why were good people so short-lived? Yet a selfish person like Yin Tianfeng could continue to live in this world? God was unfair. At the same time, Shen Mei, who was in the castle, was also sobbing. Lu Hong and Lin Yi comforted her by the side. Wolf King, Fatso, and the others also stood aside with a touch of sadness in their eyes. But there were two people who sneered in their hearts. These two people were Dongfang Wuhan and Murong Xiong. They had no sympathy for the death of Shenlong and Jiang Wei, because in their opinion, Shenlong and Jiang Wei asked for it. Now that they thought about it, they were smart. Although they lost their dignity, they could at least save their lives. Chapter 650. Suddenly, Fatso noticed Dongfang Wuhan's expression and said, Brother Wolf, guess what they are thinking now? Wolf King glanced at the two of them and sneered. Do you still need to guess? They must be secretly happy in their hearts. If he didn't know Qin Feiyang's plan, he would have killed the two of them right now. Outside, a dead person was like a lamp going out. Shenlong and Jiang Wei's boat automatically left the team and turned around to float towards the starting point of the Sea of Bitterness. But where was the end of the Sea of Bitterness? Qin Feiyang and the other three looked at the sea in front of them, their faces full of hesitation. They didn't know what kind of danger was waiting for them ahead. They didn't even know if they could leave the Sea of Bitterness alive. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, looked at Ren Wuxuang and the other two, and said, The dead can't come back to life, it's useless to be sad. Let's go. At that moment, the four of them poured battle chi into the boat without reservation. Crash! The four boats broke through the wind and waves, moving almost as fast as their flying speed, and swept towards the end of the sea like lightning. Time flew by. Half a month passed. The illusion had not disappeared, and all kinds of tempting voices were lingering in their ears all the time, tormenting them both physically and mentally. Especially at night, the tempting voices were full of tricks. Several times the four of them almost turned around. It had only been half a month, but it felt as long as a few centuries. On this day, 3 boats floated in front of them, but there was no one in the boat. There was no doubt that the people on these 3 boats had also met with misfortune. This made Qin Feiyang and the other 3 even more vigilant. "Brother Qin, wait for us." Another 3 days passed. A very familiar voice sounded from behind. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. The owner of this voice should be the valiant woman from Fengzhou. But he didn't know whether this was an illusion or not. He looked at Ren Wuxia and the other 2 and asked, "Did you hear that?" Yes. The 3 of them nodded. Although they heard it, no one dared to believe it easily. Because even if the woman from Fengzhou was really behind them, they didn't dare to look back. If they didn't dare to look back, then they couldn't confirm whether it was true or false. This was the most painful thing for them. "Brother Qin, this is not an illusion. We are really behind you. Why don't you slow down and wait for us?" The woman from Fengzhou spoke again. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other and hesitated. After pondering for a moment, Lu Xingchen said, "Let's just wait and see. If it really is them, it might not be a bad thing for us." Dong Jingyang nodded and said, "That's right. The bitter sea is full of dangers. One more person means one more helper." Moreover, the people from Feng Province and Yu Province are quite strong. The boat could only accommodate 1 person. It was also impossible to fly above the Sea of Bitterness. Therefore, he could no longer count on Wolf King, Fatso, and the others in the castle. If they encountered a crisis, they could only shoulder it themselves. After some discussion, the 4 of them slowed down and waited quietly. Voila! A short while later, the sound of surging waves could be heard from behind. In less than 10 breaths' time, 4 small boats appeared side by side beside Qin Feiyang's group. The 4 of them looked over. It was indeed the people from Feng Province and Yu Province. But why were there only 4 people? They remembered that when they met at the Bridge of Helplessness, there were a total of 13 people. The others are all dead. Only the 4 of us 3-star battle grandmasters survived. The blue-haired youth sighed. The valiant woman from Feng Province added, "The illusion of the Bridge of Helplessness and the Sea of Bitterness is too terrifying. It's impossible to guard against it." The other 2 ordinary-looking women also had melancholy on their faces. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang's group looked at each other. One had to know that the people who died in the 2 provinces were all 1-star and 2-star battle grandmasters. This kind of loss was really disastrous. The blue-haired youth suddenly asked, "Brother Qin, how many did you lose?" Qin Feiyang said, "We lost 2. They both died in the Sea of Bitterness." "Only 2? And they both died in the Sea of Bitterness?" So, on the Bridge of Helplessness, the spiritual state didn't lose a single person? The blue-haired youth and the other 3 were stunned. "What do you mean? We only lost 2. Does it make you feel very unbalanced?" Ren Wuxuang glared at the 4 of them. Shen Long and the other 2's deaths had always made her feel sad. At this moment, when she saw the reaction of the 4 of them, she couldn't help but burn with anger. "Don't misunderstand. We didn't mean that. We're just curious. How did you cross the Bridge of Helplessness? Is there any other trick? Because most of our people died in the illusion of the Bridge of Helplessness." The blue-haired youth hurriedly explained, "Don't think too much. There's no trick. We were able to cross the Bridge of Helplessness because of Brother Qin's help. Otherwise we would definitely have suffered heavy losses like you." Lu Xingchen smiled. The blue-haired youth and the other 3 immediately looked at Qin Feiyang, their eyes shining. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "I was just lucky." "Lucky?" The 4 of them shook their heads disapprovingly. The blue-haired youth sighed and said, "If we knew Brother Qin had such ability, we would have followed you shamelessly even if you didn't agree. We wouldn't have lost so many people now." "Brother Qin, everyone." The blue-haired youth glanced at Qin Feiyang, then looked at Ren Wuxuang and the other 2. He cupped his hands and said, "How about we form an alliance?" His face was full of sincerity. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other and smiled. This was exactly what they wanted to say. "We can form an alliance, but how do we divide the benefits?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Benefits? The blue-haired youth shook his head and laughed. He pointed to the sea ahead and said, "Brother Qin, does this look like a place with treasures?" Qin Feiyang said, "Whether there is or not, it's always good to make it clear in advance. Otherwise, it will hurt our friendship." "Okay. If we really encounter any treasures, we'll divide them equally. How about it?" The blue-haired youth said with a helpless expression. He felt that Qin Feiyang was a little superfluous. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. After that, both sides introduced themselves and steered the small boats forward side by side. The blue-haired youth from Yu State was called Ling Yu. The woman was called Feng Ran Ran. The valiant woman from Feng State was called Zhao Yu. The other woman was called Luo Dan. According to the four of them, before the 9 provinces' Great War began, the people from the 2 provinces had already sparred in advance. Later, seeing that the strength of both sides was not bad, they formed an alliance. In other words, before entering the 9 Nether Yellow Springs, Yu State and Feng State had already formed an alliance. It was no wonder that when Ling Yu was trying to break through to the 3-star War Grandmaster, Zhao Yu and the others from Feng State would help protect him. From this point, it also reflected that the people from the 2 provinces were still trustworthy. Time flew by. Another half a month passed. Qin Feiyang and the others had been sailing on the Sea of Bitterness for more than a month. During this period, they encountered more than a dozen small boats returning. This also meant that more than a dozen people had died in the Sea of Bitterness. Dong Junyang sighed. "I wonder how many people will return alive in the end." Ling Yu said, "Brother Dong, I'm afraid no one dares to answer this question." "That's right. Although there are 50 spots to enter the imperial capital, according to my understanding, there are no more than 20 people who enter the imperial capital in the previous years." Lu Xingchen said, "It was fine if the 2 of them didn't speak, but once they did, everyone's mood seemed a little low." "Look, there's someone in front." Suddenly, Ren Wushuang exclaimed. Everyone raised their heads, and their pupils immediately contracted. There was indeed a person standing on the sea in front of them, but because it was too far away, they couldn't see it clearly. However, they could clearly see that there was no boat under that person's feet. He was standing on the sea out of thin air. What's going on? The 8 of them were extremely surprised. Qin Feiyang said, "Slow down, be careful." Immediately, everyone withdrew their battle qi and drove towards that person at a walking speed. The distance was getting closer and closer. 400 meters, 300 meters, 200 meters, 150 meters. Finally, the 8 of them saw the person's true appearance, and they couldn't help but feel their scalps go numb. That person was wearing a blood-red robe. His long hair, eyes, and skin were all blood-red, and there was even blood flowing from his body. This blood was the seawater of the Sea of Bitterness. Moreover, he was really standing on thin air, without any support under his feet. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, "He should be the blood puppet recorded on the stone tablet. Quickly take a detour." This person was about 1.8 meters tall, and had regular facial features. Overall, he gave off an extraordinary aura, and it could be seen that he was one of the best in a province when he was alive. However, at this moment, he had become a killing machine in the Sea of Bitterness. Dong Junyang and the others nodded and immediately steered the boat beside Qin Feiyang. They took a detour, maintaining a distance of more than 100 meters from the blood puppet. The blood puppet didn't stop them. It just stared at them, and its blood-red eyes revealed a ruthless coldness. Roar! However, just as they were about to take a detour, the blood puppet suddenly opened its mouth and roared like a beast. Immediately after, it began to run on the sea of blood, and its target was Qin Feiyang and the others. "It can actually run on the surface of the sea?" Qin Feiyang and the others were dumbfounded. The valiant woman Zhao Yu said, "I'll deal with it. You guys pay attention to the surroundings. There may be other blood puppets. Let me test its strength." Qin Feiyang pointed his index finger in the air, and an invisible force suddenly roared out. Wherever it passed, it set off a huge wave that was several feet high. However, just as the invisible energy was about to hit the blood puppet flickered and easily dodged the attack, continuing to charge towards Qin Feiyang and the others. So fast. The 8 of them were shocked. Boom! The blood puppet rushed over and punched Xiaoyu, because Xiaoyu was the closest to it. The terrifying force was earth-shattering, and for a moment, the boat under their feet was like a leaf in the wind, shaking wildly. They hurriedly activated their battle aura, and condensed a battle aura boundary to stop the blood waves. However, they were shocked to find that the water in the Sea of Bitterness could actually erode their battle aura. A battle aura boundary could only last for 3 breaths at most. Get rid of it quickly, Lu Xingchen shouted at Xiaoyu. Get rid of it immediately. Xiaoyu's eyes were cold. With a wave of her hand, sword energy surged, and a 3-foot-long sword instantly appeared out of thin air. A person who has lost his mind should obediently go to hell and become a ghost. Sacred Sword Judgment. Immediately. Chapter 651. Dong. Then, the blood puppet fell into the blood sea and was drowned by the seawater. It's just SOSO. Xiaoyu clapped his hands disdainfully. Qin Feiyang and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, these blood puppets were not very strong. Otherwise, they would have had a hard battle. Dong! But the next moment, the sea around them exploded and huge waves rolled. Streaks of blood-red silhouettes burst out from the huge waves and landed on the surface of the sea. So many. The 8 of them looked ahead and to their left and right. Their expressions were extremely ugly. There were 10 blood puppets in front of them. There were 5 blood puppets on each side. There were 20 of them in total. There were also blood puppets behind them. But they could not turn around, so there was no way to know how many there were behind them. There were men and women among these blood puppets, and they all looked young and extraordinary. They must have been the strongest of the younger generation in the 9 prefectures when they were alive, just like the first blood puppet. Qin Feiyang said, "We can't continue fighting." Ling Yu and the others nodded. There were so many blood puppets. Once they started fighting, it would take a lot of time, and it would undoubtedly be more difficult to catch up with the people in front. Most importantly, they could not turn around to check the blood puppets behind them. Once they attacked from behind, it would be impossible to guard against them. Boom! There was no hesitation. Waves of aura erupted as everyone began to perform their strongest battle techniques. But Lu Xingchen did not make a move. He only glanced coldly at the blood puppets, as if it had nothing to do with him. Ultimate Destruction. Divine Demon Seal. Soul-Breaking Sword. In the blink of an eye, the 7 battle techniques appeared in the sky, shining brightly with a monstrous aura. Roar. At the same time, the surrounding blood puppets roared like wild beasts and pounced toward Qin Feiyang and the others. But Qin Feiyang and the others ignored the blood puppets on their left, right and rear. Their eyes were fixed on the 10 blood puppets in front of them. Kill. The few of them shouted in unison. The 7 battle techniques were like beasts pouncing on their prey. The 3 blood puppets at the front were instantly smashed into pieces. Let's go. Qin Feiyang shouted. The group of people immediately drove the small boat, following behind the 8 great war arts as fast as lightning. The combat strength of everyone present was quite impressive. In particular, the 4 of them were all 3-star combat grandmasters. With their battle arts, they could even fight a 6-star combat grandmaster. Judging from their strength, these blood puppets weren't any weaker than them. However, they hadn't used any battle arts since the beginning, which meant that they had already forgotten the battle arts they had learned when they were alive. Without a battle art, how could he be a match for them? Wherever the 7 great battle arts went, it could be said that they crushed everything in their path. In less than 3 breaths, the blood puppets in front of him were reduced to ashes. The 8 of them steered the small boat and fled without looking back. In fact, they also wanted to turn around and take a look, because they could feel that the blood puppets were chasing after them. However, they did not have the guts to do so. Feiyang, it's me, Uncle Yuan. I'm behind you, and I'm being attacked by blood puppets. Don't leave me behind. Wushuang, it's Grandpa, please save Grandpa. At this moment, the illusions that had tormented them appeared again. Dong Xingyang roared. Damn it, can't you do something else? Calm down. If you want to live, no matter who you hear, you can't turn around. Qin Feiyang roared. Dong Jungyang suddenly shivered, and cold sweat broke out all over his body. Before Jiang Wei died, it was because he was too angry and irritable that he lost his mind and lost his life. If it wasn't for Qin Feiyang's reminder, he would have followed in Jiang Wei's footsteps. Just thinking about it made him afraid. Zhao Yu and the other three looked at Dong Jungyang, and then at Qin Feiyang. They had always been curious as to why Dong Jungyang and the other two were able to survive until now. One had to know. Dong Jungyang was only a one-star combat grandmaster. Ren Wuxuang was also only a one-star combat grandmaster. As for Lu Xingqian, he was still hiding his cultivation. In their eyes, he was just an unremarkable war emperor. How could these three people reach the Sea of Bitterness? It turned out that it was because Qin Feiyang was constantly reminding them. In other words, although on the surface, Ren Wuxuang was the captain, Qin Feiyang was the real core. At the same time, a few miles in front of Qin Feiyang and the others, crash. On the surface of the sea, the waves were turbulent. More than 20 small boats flew past. Behind them, there was also a group of blood puppets. Among these people, there were a few familiar faces to Qin Feiyang. One of them was Tan Wu. The others were Mo Wuxian, Yan Tianfeng, Pei Sanshi and Lu Yunfeng. The others had the words Kuan and Chang embroidered on their chests. They were obviously from Kuan Prefecture in Changzhou. And among the people from these two prefectures, there were two people who were particularly eye-catching. They were two young men. They looked to be around 25 or 26 years old. One of them had a head of golden hair, while the other had a head of long green hair. Both of them were tall and straight, and their temperaments were extraordinary. Although these blood puppets are strong, they have all forgotten their battle techniques and are no threat to us. As long as there are no other changes, we will definitely be the first to reach the other side. The golden-haired man stood at the head of the bridge with a confident smile on his face. Of course, as long as we join forces, what can stop us in the 9 nether yellow springs? The green-haired youth said proudly. Mo Wuxian looked at the two of them and said, "Don't forget, there's still Qin Feiyang from the spirit state. This person is not an ordinary person. If you are careless, you will definitely suffer a great loss." The golden-haired youth and the green-haired youth looked at each other with disdain in their eyes. Mo Wuxian, don't brag about Qin Feiyang to the heavens. Our Kuan Prefecture and Changzhou are not something your Yunzhou can compare to. Fortunately, Qin Feiyang didn't meet us. Otherwise, we would definitely beat him up until he knelt down and begged for mercy. Isn't that right? What can a small war emperor do? Even if he broke through to the war master level, in our eyes, he is just a trash with an undeserved reputation. The people from Kuan Prefecture and Changzhou all sneered. Mo Wuxian frowned slightly, as if he was unhappy with the arrogance of these people. However, a smile appeared on his face and he said, "Yes, no matter how strong Qin Feiyang is, how can he be compared to you?" The golden-haired youth smiled and said, "That's right. Since we have formed an alliance, let's not talk about others and destroy our own." Yes, it's my fault." Mo Wuxian nodded, but a light flashed in the depths of his eyes. He smiled and said, "Since we have formed an alliance, shouldn't you guys help me, your ally?" "Of course we should help. Although your strength is not that great, you are still the direct disciple of the Yunzhou Prefecture Master. Even if you don't give face to the monk, you still have to give face to the Buddha, right? Tell us, what do you want us to help you with?" The golden-haired youth laughed with a hint of contempt in his words. "I'll let you be proud first." Mo Wuxian sneered secretly and said, "Qin Feiyang killed my brother when he entered Yunzhou. This time, I must let him die in the 9 nether underworld and avenge my brother. That's simple. As long as we reach the other side first, even if he doesn't die in the Sea of Bitterness, I won't allow him to set foot on the other side." The golden-haired youth said. The green-haired youth smiled and said, "I also want to meet this Qin Feiyang. I want to see if his reputation is undeserved. Or does he deserve it?" Mo Wuxian cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Then I'll thank the two of you first." The two of them smiled and ignored Mo Wuxian. At the same time, Tan Wu looked at the three of them with a hint of mockery in his eyes. He had personally experienced Qin Feiyang's means. He was simply a fiend. It was already good enough that he didn't come looking for trouble, but he actually took the initiative to provoke him. He really didn't know what to do. However, he couldn't be bothered to remind them. On the one hand, these people might not listen even if he reminded them. On the other hand, he was also very happy to see these insensible people fall. Look, what's that over there? Suddenly, a cry of surprise sounded. Tan Wu looked up suspiciously, and his eyes were immediately filled with bewilderment. At the end of the left front, there was a blurry outline. That outline was huge and towered into the clouds. Moreover, one could sense a majestic aura from afar. The golden-haired youth shouted, "Go over and take a look." More than 20 small boats immediately changed direction and swept towards the left front. As they got closer, the outline became clearer. More than 10 breaths later, everyone finally saw the outline's true appearance. It was actually a stone staircase. The stone staircase was blood red and slanted upwards. Every step was neat as one, like a staircase to heaven that reached the clouds. But the strange thing was that there was no support at the bottom of the stone staircase, giving people the feeling that it was floating on the sea. However, beside the stone staircase, there was a huge stone tablet floating on the sea. This stone tablet was more than 100 meters tall, and was also blood red, as if it was cast from fresh blood and suffused with an icy luster. And when the people present looked at the stone tablet, ecstasy immediately appeared on their faces, because there were 2 big words engraved on the stone tablet. Permitha. Like iron hooks and silver strokes, it emitted a terrifying aura that made one's heart palpitate. This is the Permitha. We've finally reached the Permitha. After a moment of silence, everyone cheered. As long as they climbed that stone staircase, they would obtain the qualifications to enter the imperial capital. The imperial capital, in the eyes of all the living beings in the 9 prefectures, that was the holy capital that they all dreamed of going to. Hurry! Everyone drove the small boats and crazily rushed towards the stone staircase. At the same time, on the distant sea, 8 small boats sped over. It was Qin Feiyang and the others. Although they were several kilometers away from Tan Wu and the others, they had been driving the small boats at full speed all along the way in order to avoid the blood puppets' pursuit. And the small boats' current moving speed was comparable to their flying speed. Thus, the distance of a few kilometers was nothing to him. And at this moment, they also saw the outline of the Permitha. But like Tan Wu and the others, they did not know what it was at first. Therefore, they were exceptionally careful at this moment. Damn! So many blood puppets! As the distance continued to shrink, they could clearly see the group of blood puppets that were chasing Tan Wu and the others, and their expressions could not help but change. Ling Yu hurriedly said, "Quickly take a detour, don't bump into them." Chapter 652. Don't take a detour. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Why? Ling Yu looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyang said, "Then answer me first. What are those blood puppets chasing?" Ling Yu frowned. "Do you still need to ask? Of course they're chasing someone." "That's right. The people from Hezhou, Kuan, Changzhou, and Yunzhou are all ahead of us. Therefore, the people that the blood puppets are chasing are definitely them. In other words, we've already caught up with them." Qin Feiyang said. "Yes, but because of this we should take a detour. Because only by avoiding the blood puppets in front of us can we really overtake them." Ling Yu said. "You're right, but you ignored the direction those blood puppets are going. See, they're all going for that silhouette. And these blood puppets are chasing Imo Wuxian and the others. If they went there, Imo Wuxian and the others must have gone there too. I'm guessing that the real body of that silhouette is definitely not ordinary." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. Ling Yu's pupil shrank. He looked up at the silhouette, and his face was full of surprise. Zhao Yu glanced at Qin Feiyang and said, "Ling Yu, we'll do as Brother Qin says." Ling Yu nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Brother Qin, please give us your orders." In terms of intelligence, he admitted that he was indeed not as smart as Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, "There's nothing to give, just be prepared for battle at any time." "Understood." Everyone nodded. Splash! The 8 boats suddenly turned into sharp arrows, breaking through the waves. Wuxia and the others were only 200 meters away from the other shore. It could be said that they were very close. Everyone was wild with joy. 200 meters. 150 meters. 100 meters. But just as they entered the range of 100 meters, the faces of the 5 people at the front suddenly twisted. Then, the 5 of them turned around at the same time. The next moment, following a series of painful screams, the 5 people exploded one after another. The small boat under his feet immediately turned back. What happened? The people behind all stopped in unison and looked at the 5 returning boats in bewilderment. The golden-haired youth looked at Lu Yunfeng and Pei Sanshur and said, "You two go take a look." "We." The 2 of them raised their eyebrows. The golden-haired youth shouted impatiently, "Go now, or don't blame me for being ruthless." A vicious aura immediately rose between the brows of Lu Yunfeng and the other 2. Wasn't this clearly asking them to be cannon fodder? Wuxia transmitted his voice. "We are alone and weak. We can't go against them. Hurry up and be careful." The 2 of them looked at Wuxia gloomily. On the surface, Wuxia seemed to be concerned about them. But in reality, he was harboring evil intentions. They knew that both Wuxia and Yan Tianfeng wanted to get rid of them. But because they had been on guard all along the way, they didn't let the 2 of them get a chance. At this very moment, naturally, Wuxia would not miss such a good opportunity. However, even though they knew this, they had no way out. The golden-haired youth's strength was far beyond theirs. If they dared to say no, they would definitely be killed. The other shore was right in front of them. If they died now, it would not be worth it. Seeing that the 2 of them were hesitating, the golden-haired youth did not hide the murderous intent in his eyes. He shouted, "Why aren't you going?" The most important thing was that the blood puppets behind them were about to catch up. If they couldn't figure out the reason for the 5 people's deaths before the blood puppets caught up, they could only force their way in without any mental preparation. At that time, they might not be able to survive. "Let's go. Even though it's dangerous, it's still an opportunity." Lu Yunfeng transmitted his voice to Pei Sanshur. If they could restrain themselves after finding out the reason for the 5 people's deaths, they would definitely be the first to reach the other shore. Phew! Pei Sanshur took a deep breath and drove the small boat side by side with Lu Yunfeng, slowly moving forward. At this moment, Wuxia and the others held their breaths and stared at the 2 of them. Finally, Lu Yunfeng and Pei Sanshur entered the range of 100 meters. "Save me. Don't leave me behind. Mother misses you, come back quickly. Child, why aren't you answering me? I'm right behind you, quickly turn around and look at me." Immediately, an incomparably mournful and despairing voice came from behind the 2 of them, continuously drilling into their ears. "You 2 bastards, I've wanted to kill you for a long time, go to hell. You actually want to shake our position. You really don't know life from death. Let me tell you, you'll never be able to leave the 9 nether yellow springs alive." Following that, Wuxia and Yan Tianfeng's voices entered their ears, filled with bone-piercing killing intent. Even they could clearly feel 2 terrifying auras erupting from behind them. The 2 of them turned pale with fright and hurriedly looked back. But when they saw it, the 2 of them were dumbfounded. This was because Wuxia and Yan Tianfeng did not show any signs of fighting. Oh no! The 2 of them suddenly came back to their senses. This was an illusion. But it was too late to understand now. Accompanied by 2 mournful screams, their bodies directly exploded, and blood splattered across the sky. Seeing this scene, the golden-haired youth and the others were extremely shocked. Wasn't this death too fast? What was going on? At this moment, in their eyes, the mere 100 meters in front of them was like a forbidden zone of death, and they did not dare to step into it. Roar! At this moment, a series of roars sounded from behind, less than 100 meters away. Needless to say, the blood puppet had caught up. The green-haired youth shouted, "We can't care about that anymore, let's go." Immediately, the group of people steered the boat and braced themselves as they headed towards the stone stairs. But just as they entered the range of 100 meters, all the boats stopped. Each of them had a ferocious look on their faces as they struggled frantically. In the blink of an eye, another 4 people turned their heads and exploded to death, adding Lu Yunfeng and Pei Sanshi, as well as the 5 people who died at the beginning. 11 people had already died. And these 11 people were all war masters. However, the blood puppets did not chase after them, but they did not retreat either. They blocked behind Tan Wu and the others, clearly wanting to cut off their retreat. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and the others, who were flying over, also saw the stone stairs that led to the clouds. And when the 2 words Higan entered their sight, the 8 of them were overjoyed. Dong Jungyang said excitedly, "We're finally here, quick, catch up now, maybe we can still make it in time." After enduring for so long, he finally saw Higan. He had almost forgotten about everything. Qin Feiyang glanced at the stone stairs, then at the stone tablet, and then at the blood puppets in front of him. Suddenly, he noticed that there were more than a dozen boats floating towards them. However, because there were too many blood puppets blocking his line of sight, he could not see the situation of Tan Wu and the others. But his intuition told him that something was happening in front of him. At this moment, Dong Jungyang and the others had already steered the boat forward. Qin Feiyang's expression changed, and he immediately steered the boat to chase after them, at the same time shouting, "Stop! Higan is right in front of us. Why are we stopping?" Zhao Yu said without turning his head. "Didn't you see those boats floating over? There are more than a dozen boats. In other words, more than a dozen people have already lost their lives. It must be very dangerous ahead, don't be rash." Qin Feiyang said angrily. Hearing this, Dong Jungyang and the others glanced at the sea, and when they saw the dozen boats, they suddenly shuddered and hurriedly braked. Qin Feiyang caught up with them and said in a deep voice, "If you continue to be so impulsive, I won't care about your life or death. I'm sorry. We were wrong." Whether it was Dong Jungyang and the other 2, or Ling Yu and the other 3, they all looked ashamed and apologized to Qin Feiyang. Suddenly, 2 desperate screams came from afar. The 8 of them looked up, their eyes full of surprise and doubt. Qin Feiyang's eyes were solemn, and he said, "Without a doubt, it's not that easy to reach Higan. Be careful." Dong Jungyang and the others nodded. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the 8 of them once again steered the boat and sailed in that direction. Roar! The blood puppet that was chasing them from behind suddenly roared angrily. Immediately, the blood puppets behind Tan Wu and the others all turned their heads in an instant and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. Damn it! Qin Feiyang and the others' faces darkened. They didn't know how many blood puppets were behind them, but there were more than 50 blood puppets in front of them. Roar! The 50 blood puppets immediately rushed toward Qin Feiyang and the others, and their roars shook the sky and the earth. "What should we do?" Dong Jungyang looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Xingchen and said, "Shouldn't you also make a move? We can't always let Ling Yu and the other 3 do it." Everyone looked at Lu Xingchen in surprise. How would I dare to disobey Brother Qin's orders? Lu Xingchen smiled, raised his hand and pointed in the air, and a giant storm suddenly appeared out of thin air. Those wind blades emitted the power to destroy the world. At the same time, his aura was like a rainbow, as if a god had descended to the world. What a powerful aura! What a terrifying battle art! Lu Xingchen, you're actually a 3-star war grandmaster. Dong Jungyang and Ren Wushuang were dumbstruck. Ling Yu and the other 2 were also shocked. And according to their judgment, the battle art that Lu Xingchen was using now was also a perfect battle art. Lu Xingchen smiled faintly and said, "I don't think I've ever admitted that I'm a 7-star war emperor." Woo woo. Crash! After he finished speaking, he waved his hand, and the giant storm whistled toward the blood puppets in front. Wherever it passed, the sea rolled and waves of blood surged. Those blood puppets were like rotten wood, unable to withstand a single blow, and a large number of them were instantly obliterated. In just 2 blinks of an eye, the giant storm forcibly tore a hole in it. Ling Yu and the other 3 looked at each other. They never thought that there would be such a terrifying expert hidden in the spiritual state. "Now is not the time to be distracted, let's go," Qin Feiyang shouted. The 8 of them steered the small boat and followed behind the giant storm, advancing rapidly. In less than 10 breaths, the 8 of them rushed out of the encirclement. But when they saw the current situation of Tan Wu and the others, their faces were full of shock and bewilderment. What were these people doing? Chapter 653. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "Something's wrong. Stop." The 8 boats immediately stopped in unison. At this moment, they were only 50 to 60 meters away from the 100-meter range. The other shore is right in front of us. Any normal person wouldn't stop here. Unless there are other factors. But we can't see their expressions. It's hard to tell. Lu Xingchen frowned. "I can't take it. I'd rather die." Suddenly, a person from Kuanzhou howled and turned around. Naturally, the outcome was that he exploded and died. The moment this person turned around, Qin Feiyang and the others captured his expression. His twisted face was filled with pain. His blood-red eyes were filled with despair. Ren Wushuang said, "Could it be an illusion?" "It shouldn't be. Illusions would appear at any time on our way here. They must be the same. But they were able to come here alive, which means that their willpower is not weak. How could they be confused by illusions at this last step?" Zhao Yu said. "Roar." The blood puppets behind them approached step by step. Qin Feiyang said, "We can't delay any longer. No matter what, we can only move forward." But before he finished speaking, an angry roar suddenly exploded. "What can mere illusions do to me?" The one who shouted was Tan Wu. At the same time, the boat under his feet finally moved and sailed toward the other shore. "It's really an illusion." Zhao Yu's gaze trembled. Dong Xingyang said in a deep voice, "And this illusion is very unusual. Otherwise, so many people wouldn't have died here. Those illusions before were just appetizers. This is where the real test is. Are you all ready?" Qin Feiyang glanced at the 7 of them. The 7 of them nodded heavily. It wasn't easy to get here. They definitely couldn't fall here. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. The 8 of them drove the boat and rushed into the 100-meter range. Immediately, like Tan Wu and the others, the boat stopped in unison. All kinds of tempting voices turned into a terrifying sound wave and poured into their minds. His face and eyes were filled with pain and struggle. Just as the 8 of them entered the forbidden area, the golden-haired young man and the green-haired young man roared and broke free from the illusion one after another. However, when they saw that Tan Wu actually woke up before them, a trace of viciousness immediately crept up between their brows. "Tan Wu, the first person to reach the other side must be us. Stop right there," the golden-haired young man shouted, his eyes filled with killing intent. Tan Wu ignored them and stared at Higan with a burning gaze. "I told you to stop, didn't you hear me?" The murderous aura between the golden-haired young man's eyebrows became even thicker. "Humph." Tan Wu gave a cold snort and turned a deaf ear. "Break." At this moment, Mo Wu Shun's roar sounded out, and he also woke up and immediately steered the small boat towards the opposite shore. Back to Qin Feiyang. At this moment, his hands were tightly clenched, and his face was distorted. Sweat was dripping down his forehead like rain. This was because the voices of countless people were echoing in his head. There was his mother's voice, it was Uncle Yuan's voice. There was Ling Yunfei's voice. It was Luo Qingzhu's voice. It was Jiang Jingyi's voice. And the voices of Ma Hongmei, Zhua and Old Monster Lu, and Dong Zheng. In short, whether it was his relatives, friends, or enemies who had died in his hands, they were all talking behind his back at this moment. Some people said that they missed him. Some people said that they wanted to kill him. There were also people who said that they wanted to take his life. Moreover, some voices sounded in his ears. He could even clearly feel the hot air coming out of the mouths of those people who were talking. It was as if there was really someone behind him. Qin Feiyang also finally understood now why Tan Wu and the rest would stop here. Because the illusion here was too real. It was no exaggeration to say that the illusions he had experienced on the way were not even 1/10,000th of the illusions here. "Your Highness, is the outside world fun? Do you want to return to the imperial capital? Unfortunately, you are no longer the 14th prince. You are now just a dog that no one wants. You will never be able to return to the imperial capital. Haha." Suddenly, The voices in his ears changed and turned into mocking laughter. Wild laughter. The appearance of these voices caused Qin Feiyang's murderous aura to soar. Because the owners of these voices were the people who had hurt him in the imperial capital, he was going crazy with hatred. His nails had already sunk into his skin, and blood was flowing. But he gritted his teeth and endured it. The last bit of reason he had told him, that he absolutely could not turn back. Suddenly, a monstrous murderous aura rushed out of his body. His black hair fluttered as he roared towards the sky. I swear, I will kill all of you with my own hands and make you regret it. With this roar, all the voices in his ears suddenly disappeared. Who? At this moment, Qin Feiyang's body went soft as he half knelt in the boat. Sweat dripped like raindrops, and he panted like an ox. It was really dangerous just now, and he almost lost his mind. However, it was also thanks to the voices of those people just now, because it was these voices that had completely stimulated the hatred in his heart and his unyielding will, which allowed him to get rid of the illusion. This is Qin Feiyang's voice. At the same time, hearing Qin Feiyang's roar, Tan Wu and Emma Wuxian's eyes trembled, as they were all confused by the illusion and could not turn back. Only now did they know that Qin Feiyang had also rushed over. And from the sound, Qin Feiyang seemed to have gotten rid of the illusion. Immediately, Tan Wu's eyes became playful. Once this fiend arrived, there would definitely be a good show to watch. But Emma Wuxian's eyes were filled with killing intent. He absolutely could not let this person reach the other shore. He looked at the blonde youth in front of him and transmitted his voice. The two of you. That roar just now was Qin Feiyang. You have to keep your word. Don't worry with us here. He can forget about reaching the other shore. And Tan Wu, he will definitely die today. A cruel smile crept onto their faces. After a short period of calm, Qin Feiyang finally recovered. He got up and looked at Emma Wuxian and the rest, frowning slightly. Then, he looked at Tan Wu who was about to reach the shore, and a smile crept into his eyes. To be honest, Tan Wu was the first to reach the other shore, which was somewhat beyond his expectations. But it could also be seen that this person's willpower was very terrifying. So the more he looked at this person, the more satisfied he was. He must take him under his command. At this moment, the boat under Tan Wu's feet finally reached the shore. Seeing this, the blonde youth was immediately anxious and said angrily, Tan Wu, do you really not want to live anymore? Whether I want to live or not, it's not up to you. Tan Wu mocked without turning his head, and then walked to the bow of the boat without hesitation. The other shore, I'm here. He looked up at the long stone stairs and muttered to himself. He decisively lifted his foot and stepped onto the first step of the stone stairs. Damn it! The blonde youth's face was as dark as water. Want to kill me? Follow me, Tan Wu said without even turning his head. Then he dashed up the stone stairs. Qin Feiyang glanced at the blonde youth with a hint of ridicule in his eyes. Actually, it was not very important whether he was the first to reach the other shore or not. Anyway, as long as he could enter the imperial capital, it was fine. And the reason why these two people were so eager to be first was purely because of vanity. Because, if they could be the first to reach the other shore, then they would have the capital to show off in the future. But what was certain was that Tan Wu had completely angered these two people. A bloody battle was inevitable later. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at Ren Wushuang and the rest. The few of them were not awake yet. How could he help them? He lowered his head and pondered. At this time, the blonde youth, the green-haired youth, and Emma Wuxian also stepped onto the stone stairs one after another. Their boat also immediately turned around and returned the way they came. But after the three of them stepped onto the stone stairs, they did not chase after Tan Wu immediately. The blonde youth frowned and said, Do you guys think we can turn back now? I don't know. The green-haired youth shook his head. The blonde youth pondered for a moment and said, Emma Wuxian, turn back and try. Me. Emma Wuxian's face immediately turned green. What? Do you want to die? Do you believe that I'll kick you down now? The blonde youth's eyes flashed. Emma Wuxian, you have to be sure that you can turn back first, before we can help you deal with Qin Feiyang. If we can't turn back, how can we deal with him? So don't hesitate. lest you really get kicked into the sea of bitterness. At that time, there will be no hope. The green-haired youth said with a smile. Wuxian was furious. If he had known earlier, he would not have colluded with these two people. But it was too late to regret now. I'll count to 3. If you don't turn back, then don't be ruthless. The blonde youth sneered. 3, 2, 1. The golden-haired youth was counting slowly. But in Wuxian's ears, it was like a talisman that hastened his death. Just as he counted to 1, Wuxian gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and suddenly turned around, his face filled with nervousness and panic. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, until 10 breaths passed. Wuxian did not show any signs of exploding. He slowly opened his eyes. Seeing that he was unharmed, he was immediately overjoyed and said, I can turn back. The blonde youth was also overjoyed, and immediately turned to look at the sea of bitterness. After more than a month, this is the first time we turn back to enjoy the scenery of the sea of bitterness. The blonde youth laughed. Yes. The green-haired youth nodded, and then asked, Wuxian, who is Qin Feiyang? He is. Wuxian pointed at Qin Feiyang, who was in deep thought with his head lowered, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The two looked over and sized up Qin Feiyang for a moment, and a trace of disdain appeared in their eyes. Isn't he just a 1-star battle ancestor? What's the big deal? Killing him is as easy as waving my hand. But isn't he awake? Why hasn't he come up? The blonde youth said with disdain, and then asked suspiciously. Wuxian thought for a moment and said, This person is a very emotional person. He should be trying to help his companions. So childish. The two of them shook their heads mockingly. Wuxian glanced at the two of them, and there was a trace of worry in his eyes. The two of them were too arrogant. If they did not quickly get rid of Qin Feiyang, they would definitely suffer a great loss in the end. His eyes flashed slightly, and he laughed. The two of you, in order to prevent any accidents, why don't we kill him now? Good idea. We have already left the sea of bitterness, and can kill him freely. But his hands and feet are tied on the small boat. The two of them laughed very brightly. Wuxian also laughed. Then what are we waiting for? Let's end his dog life. Boom. Immediately. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.